around here honking to show support for this protest. And the protest here is to reopen Escambia County beaches is what they're protesting for. And I heard some of the organizers here say that they plan to stick out here throughout this special meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to discuss reopening the beaches. You see some signs there like, let us work, liberty is worth the fight. And I can't believe I'm protesting for my rights. And some of the signs that we're reading here, if you can see them from this vantage point here. And if you're just tuning in, again, this is outside the Escambia County Board of County Commissioners special meeting going on right now to discuss the prospect of reopening Escambia County beaches, which of course remain closed at this hour amidst COVID-19 pandemic. We have recently seen Santa Rosa County, Okaloosa County, their county commissioners going and passing limited, opening the beaches with some limitations. Unclear what influence that may have on the Escambia County Commissioners' decision here today.
They have to open it.
You see Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan here as well, Chip Simmons.
Santa Rosa County opened their side of the island starting tomorrow or Friday or whatever. So everybody would just flock to the other side of the island if Pensacola decided not to open our side of the island. I mean, come on. It ain't that big of an island.
And again, these same 4 cars keep circling the block here and honking to show support for this protest. So they clearly seem to be part of this protest.
Free the beaches.
Don't you know, talking about the revolution sounds. Don't you know, talking about the revolution sounds. While they're standing in the welfare line, crying at the doorsteps of those armies.
I'm surprised there's not more people. Because we're a county with over 300,000.
The Escambia County Commissioners should be starting their meeting right now to discuss the prospect of reopening beaches across Escambia County. If you're just tuning in, you see the protests going on here outside of the Escambia County Government Complex. And it's
hey, Don. Good to see you, Don.
Reopening Escambia County beaches. You can read what
Machine
some of the signs there.
Talk about a revolution
Brian
for
Stabler.
freedoms, guys. Come on. Honestly, I made this playlist together last night, and I go, what are we, crazy? I mean, seriously, to go to the beach, I got to put these on here? Freedom. Freedom's free. That's what we were built on. This country is built on. We don't need a revolution for freedom. We need leaders to stand up for our freedom.
I'm starting to turn, talking about the revolution. Finally the table, I'm starting to turn, talking about the revolution. Talking about the revolution.
1.4 thousand people watching. This is live here in my city.
Thank you, American Complex. Continued support.
Talking about
I do. I miss the beach too, man. I hear you.
Sure.
And following Sheriff Morgan.
Hey, Sheriff, we're on Facebook Live right now. Do you mind if I just ask you a few questions about the meeting? So for those
There's
who
our
watch, of
sheriff.
course, this is Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan. So that meeting's going on right now, discussing the prospect of reopening Escambia County beaches. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, what we're here for is they're getting, some directions together, some ordinances possibly to be enforced. Actually, probably won't be an ordinance. They don't have enough time to publish it. So we've been working with the county administrator and some of the county commissioners on what part we will actually play in an enforcement of these new rules. We're very concerned that we end up getting crosswise with really innocent people, good law-abiding citizens who didn't follow or would not want to follow a particular direction from the county commission. So we want to work with them on whatever the wording is and let them know what our capability is and our capabilities are not to enforce certain things. So, but I think that, they've been debating this issue for some time, and there's a big outreach to the community. So hopefully,
good to see you, Doc Michaels.
Conclusion today that starts bringing us out of this lockdown. We're going to need to do that, number one, for the economy. And as I was telling the other folks, we're at a juncture now that, unless you were living in a cave on Mars, you know about social distancing. You know about good hygiene, washing your hands, using hand sanitizer, wearing a mask if that's something you're comfortable with. And so I think you'll see people will practice that. But what we've got to worry about now is getting our community back up on its feet, pointed in the right direction, and get people back to work.
Now, if they choose to reopen here today, would you be tasked with enforcing any limitations they may put on that?
Only by exception. In that the plan, I believe, is to use code enforcement officers and lifeguards to ask people to social distance and that sort of thing. And then if they are not compliant, then
He's on a bicycle.
The problem that we've got there is that once we get involved, then you will be issued a citation and notice to appear. And in a worst case scenario, you could possibly, face an arrest. So, we don't want to be there. We want to make sure that we don't have to arrest people for not social distancing. That's pretty thin.
And obviously, they have a right to protest. How do you feel seeing the protests out here?
This is your country at its best right here. The right to assembly, the right to protest.
Yes,
They're
we
doing it
will
very
protest.
peacefully. They followed all the rules. This is what we're about right here.
Thank you so much for your time, Sheriff. Be well.
That was our sheriff.
You just heard there from
The same
Escambia
sheriff.
County Sheriff David Morgan. At least I hope you could hear it. Is very loud out here.
Yeah.
Can't control that, obviously.
This is the same sheriff, guys, that the FBI lied to. This guy right here, Sheriff Morgan. He was very upset with the FBI during the NAS Pensacola mass shooting. Remember here in December. Yep, this guy, they kept him out of the loop. They weren't answering his questions, and it was his deputies that went on the base and stopped this
Inside the Escambia County government
radical
building in downtown
Muslim.
Pensacola, as the Board of County Commissioners is meeting right now for a special meeting to discuss the
I'm really
prospect of
impressed with the
reopening
sheriff,
Escambia
and
County
that's the
beaches.
first time I've ever said
Unclear
that,
exactly
guys.
which way
This
they're
guy
going to go here today.
is not as bad
But you do
as
see the
most of
protests
them.
going on outside, just outside the doors here. This is a protest in support of reopening Escambia County beaches. You can read some of the signs there.
Yeah.
They've been out here before the start of the meeting, and I've heard their supporters on the megaphone over there saying that they plan to stick it through and be out here throughout this entire meeting. Of course, we'll hear the outcome.
Man, I wish I was there. I'd like to interview all those people.
Going to go. But I'm going to leave you here now as I try and go inside this meeting, listen to what they have to say inside from the Board of County Commissioners.
Ooh, yeah.
For now, this is Forrest Nylander reporting for Channel 3 News. I will update you as this decision is made here today.
All right, so they're ending that, folks. But I'm sure he'll be back. He's going to go in the building and listen to the meeting going on to open our beaches. This is what you were just watching there with me. I was live overnight, and I said I would get up early and catch this, and I did. I was only about 7 minutes. It was only 7 minutes into it when I started recording live. But anyway, they'll be back, and it's going to be great to see what the answers are. Like I said, they can't really not open our beach, and I'm fixing to show you just what we're fighting for here. Pensacola Beach, Santa Rosa Island is beautiful, and it's huge. So we should be able to use our beach, and if we must responsibly, space ourselves out. But yeah, they've got to open the beach because it's an island, and on one side I've already agreed to open up the Santa Rosa County side. Ours is Escambia County side, but the whole island is a Santa Rosa island. Yeah, you have Santa Rosa, California, and you have Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. Let's see here. I'm gonna try and show you a good video of our beaches. I think they would have some better. Huh? It's ridiculous. This better be good. Now this is going over to the Navarre side. This bridge right here. I used to live about 8 miles from this bridge in Navarre, and you go over this bridge right here, and then you're on the island. See out there, the island goes both ways there, to your left and to your right. It doesn't go a whole lot of way towards the left there, but it goes a good ways towards the right up here, and you can literally drive from one end of the island to the other, from Navarre Beach to Pensacola Beach. And look, there's not a lot of chemtrails in this. I don't know when it was taken, but pretty clear sky. And this side of the island is free. You can get on for free, and of course drive to the Pensacola side if you want. But the Pensacola side is $1. You got to pay $1 to get on. And this year it's going cashless, so you can't give them $1 anymore. You've got to pay electronically, which is just moving towards the Visa system, of course, cashless society Visa system. And yep, this is Navarre Beach right here. And the good thing about it, if you live in Navarre and go to this side of the island, there's not as many people year round on it, and it's just as pretty as the other side of the island. There's not as much on this end of the island as there is on Pensacola, but yeah, still just as pretty. And just right there is the Gulf right ahead there. They're turning to go down the road that parallels with it. And if you stay on this road right here, you'll run into Pensacola, Florida. But the speed limit's so low, it's like 25 miles per hour, because you're going across the island and through the bird sanctuaries. And the birds do not like people going through there, and neither do the people that care about the birds and the turtles. Yep. Let's see. Are they even going to show the Gulf of Mexico? That's your Gulf on the side there. You got the bay over here on your right. And all your beach houses. Yeah, like I said, Pensacola side is nicer Got more beach houses and stuff, bigger ones. So let's try Pensacola Beach, Florida. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody has a terrific Tuesday. I've got a busy day ahead of me. I'm just waiting for my direct deposit to hit and then go pay some bills and get a tire put on one of my cars and so on and so on.
Hey guys, what's up? We are in Pensacola Beach, Florida. You got Zane at the camera, and this is our recap video. Pensacola is an amazing.
They just
little
replaced
chunk
that
of
sign
paradise.
right there, Pensacola Beach sign. It looks exactly the same, of course. Hey, that's where they're
From historic downtown,
that was where their protests were. You just
sandy
showed.
Pensacola Beach.
That's the bay side there. That's the Gulf side. It's usually more blue than that. That looked like crap.
To the Blackwater River and down the Blackwater Trail.
There's yeah, that was the main part of the beach. That's the bay side there, but they did show that's the bay side too, quiet water. This is on the Gulf side. There's the fishing pier, and that was the stage for concerts, whatnot. Yeah, here you go. Here you go. This is what the water normally looks like. Look at that white sand. Beautiful. Oh, yeah. That's what I miss. Santa Rosa Island.
Love is the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, tripping fast, and then we talk slow. Come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop, and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance.
So pretty. Flat Earth, flat island. Look how far you can see. No curve. Sugar sand.
Love is the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, tripping fast, and then we talk slow. Come hours and hours about sweet and sour and how your family's doing okay. And leaving you in the taxi, pressing the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. And music.
Pretty cool, huh? Yuck, 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 yuck. Best beaches in USA, Pensacola. I don't know about that, but check out this footage from Ivan. I was here during Ivan. Made a lot of money scrapping after Ivan. Pensacola Beach. exclusive, never seen before video. Imagine that.
Here we are, sitting in Pensacola Beach on the barrier island, and I finally got my computer to work temporarily. Hopefully it stays working, but you can see there's the eye. I am right there, Pensacola, just on the barrier island. Let's see if I can point. I'm like right there. Pressure is at 988 and falling. It's 11:19 p.m.
Ooh.
Right now it's 154. 154 in the morning. We got a pressure of 973, falling fast. And right now, I am on the 4th floor, I believe. Yeah.
Yep, it made a huge mess. 40-foot waves. 40-foot waves. Yes, 40. 40-foot waves hit Interstate I-10 and took it out. Oh boy. Is it 420? Almost 420 somewhere. About to do my first. That was 2004. I want to say, Dawn. Hurricane Ivan. Worst hurricane to ever come through here. It did so much damage. It was ridiculous. Our power was out for weeks. That road right there is the one that goes where we saw earlier from Navarre to Pensacola Beach. It was covered in like 2 feet of sand, the whole road, and it was tore up. It was, I mean, literally, like you'd see a chunk there, and then no road. I mean, it was so bad. It was so tore up. It was a long time before you were ever even able to drive down it, even after they cleared it, because it was ruined. They had to repave it. This damage isn't nothing compared to what it was countywide. It was devastating. Look at that. Damn. That's crazy. Wow. Now Dawn, we did have not too far away from here, we in Panama City, we they had the Hurricane Michael. That was a Hurricane 5. It was a 5, level 5. That was just a couple years ago at the most. Yeah, that was in this area, but concentrated there in Panama City. That ain't snow. Look at that Corvette buried. Wow. Yeah, lots of damage like that everywhere, unfortunately. Turned a beautiful beach into a disaster area real quick. But as you can see, it's beautiful again. As we saw. We don't even have that helicopter anymore. County doesn't have police helicopters no more. That was pretty cool. I've never seen that one before, that particular one. All right, let's go back and see if they're live again at the protest, hopefully. Says it's live now. Yep, here we go.
Form submissions. I think that was the last tally that I received or that I heard. And 2/3 of those were for open. And the majority was open with no restrictions that you did not highlight twice in your posts. And I will say, I am disappointed in you, Mr. Burgos, for spinning the exact words and text of the letter from the CEOs to match the restrictions. And I will quote from your blog, okay? Hang on. I'll take the time to get there just so you can hear it. Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. I don't appreciate this because you are my commissioner, which you have not responded to a single email. Thank you. Local hospital CEOs support phased reopening of public beaches with restrictions in place. That is the leader. That is the lead sentence. That is it. But if you actually read the text of the letter, right? They state, and I'll actually bring that up. Hang on one second. Did someone read the letter here into record, please? I need to know that.
It has not yet been read in the record.
Do I need to read that into record, or will somebody read that letter of recommendation from the 3 hospital CEOs into record, please?
Sir, you've got 45 seconds.
Okay, so I'm not reading it into the record. Someone else must. But essentially, you're paraphrasing what they said. In the paragraph, they said that they are open to a phased approach of reopening, right? A phased approach to easing some restrictions, comma, including opening the beaches. And then the bullet points show 3 restrictions. Those restrictions are groups of 10 or less, 6 feet of distance between them, normal social distancing. Then the other 2 bullet points are what the state takes care of, and nothing about time, nothing about use, nothing about parking. The gradual easing of restrictions is the total outcome of all of this. Everything closed, including opening the beaches. There's no restrictions there. Read it for yourself, and please, someone read it into record so it's on record in this meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to respond to that.
Sure.
And no need for the speaker to come back. I actually interviewed each of the presidents of the hospitals over the last month, multiple times, and that's what was stated. You want to talk about records, go watch the videos. You'll see for yourself. On page 2 of that letter, look on page 2. No, I don't need to. look on page 2 of the letter, and then
Sir,
read the
please have a
paragraph.
seat.
Yeah, have a seat.
Correct.
Thanks, brother. Coming back.
Sir, please have a seat.
I know you care.
As I was saying, on the second page, if you look at the paragraph, it clearly
That you
states
live here.
that they supported being opened with restrictions to include social distancing and groupings of less than 10. So you can parse pairs however you'd like. What I said in my blog post, what I'm saying right now, absolutely true. Thank you.
Ma'am. In the
You're
front.
welcome, Don.
You had your hand up, yes, ma'am.
This is my county.
Hi, Alice Downs, 12156 Havbrook Drive. Just 2 points I want to come up and speak, but this one was definitely something I wanted to make sure everybody knew my opinion on this.
First bong hit of the day, bro.
Please be free, whether we want free to choose whether we want to go to our beaches without the fear of repercussions from our law enforcement. Our rights should not be infringed upon because the minority of people don't want them to open due to their own.
Look at that flag on her sleeve. It's got the red stripe under the stars, y'all.
Space, but making it okay to go
Check
to Walmart,
that out.
Home Depot, and Lowe's.
That's
Are you
that's
kidding me? That makes
flag
common sense.
residue.
Opening the beaches without restrictions is the start to this opening of the world. So please let us be free to choose. This whole COVID-19 show is going to go down as one of the biggest farces forced on the American people in our history. Are we really having to be right here begging for our rights right now? This has already had far-reaching implications that none of us have even thought about, and we won't come to knowledge until they come out. One of these implications that maybe or maybe not y'all may have thought of or considered is when of our schools are going to open. Colorado is already planning on starting the next school year.
Good to see you, Sweets.
President Trump has us rolling this out in 3 phases. Schools are on the second phase. If we don't get phase 1 up and going, we are possibly looking at starting the 2021 school year, virtual learning here in Escambia County. I'm a teacher of 17 years.
Wow.
And the education we are providing right now is just not the same level as we would if we were actually at school. My school is a Title I high.
Got to choke to get all. You got to
kids get free breakfast and
cough
lunch
to get
every
off.
day, and it's sometimes the only 2 meals they get for the day. They have to drive now to get those meals. We are still making them available. Let me be clear about that. They are food available, but they have to drive to get that food now. Wherein before the kids obviously just went to school and ate it. So now you're talking about
Smoke
people that
up,
don't have
Swedes.
transportation, not able to get their kids food. This is just one of those other, repercussions of what we're doing. It's also affected testing. Obviously, not too upset about that. But it's also affected ESE kids getting their services for next year. It's affecting budgets, curriculum. The list can go on and on. We have to get phase 1 up and going. We need to have the right to choose to go to the beach, to go back to work, and try to get some semblance back in our lives. Please start this process by opening up our beaches without restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat, if you don't mind, and then Charlie, you know.
No, I didn't see that. Sweets.
Charlie Rodenberry, 414 Williamsburg Drive. I'm in Gulf Breeze proper, but I'm a realtor at Island Realty on the beach. The beach has always been a part of my soul. And I want to commend, I'm just proud to be on the right side, on the same side of the issue as Mr. Underhill this time around, most of the time. But anyway, I want to start off with the numbers. First of all, the test results. Instead of 18 hours surface virus, instead of 18 hours,
Nice,
when
Don.
it goes into temperatures of 70 and 75, it's 2 minutes. And the aerosol, it goes from 60 minutes to 1.5 minutes. That's the beach. That's all over. That's the major doctor, our beach, our sunlight. I'm for opening the beach. Now, unlike, the no requirements, I would like to enforce some requirements. It's got to be something that's going to work, it's going to be practical, or we're going to be right back in the same place.
No.
It does not need to be just in the casino parking lot. We got enough beach and we got enough national seashore and park to spread out.
Yeah.
Most of us have learned the lessons. We're not going to go back to where it's like a 9/11 next day. The lifeguards are doing a great job out there of going by, policing the beach. I watch them all the time from a different vantage.
Yeah, vaccines are voodoo,
And they
Swedes.
come by and
They're meant
get the
to
bull
harm
and run
people.
people off, and that's great. I believe the hotels at first need to enforce Florida residents only. I wish they could enforce, Escambia County and Santa Rosa County, but they have to produce the ID. So I would suggest maybe the hotels have some restrictions on it. Again, we've learned our lessons. I want to go back to work. A lot of people want to go back to work, and the beach, it doesn't do anything but kill the virus. We're not going to huddle up. Nobody has ever pitched beach blankets next to each other. Might be some God's gift to women, try to do his blanket right next to a bikini, and she's going to shoo them away. So let's get back to work. We'll start with the beach, and then everything else will go after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
Charlie, we've often been on the opposite sides of arguments. At no time did I ever question your love for the beach and your motives. I will say that it's important to remember that by constitutional law, we cannot, the citizens from other states are afforded the same rights and protections as citizens from each of the several states. So trying to write a law that would say Floridians only would not withstand scrutiny. But it is important to know that the hoteliers on the beach have voluntarily gone to a 50% manning and have offered to maintain that for as long as necessary, within reason, obviously. So, there are other ways to achieve exactly what you mentioned, and certainly making sure that we're not rolling out the welcome mat of Florida is an important part of what we're going to try to do here.
Take care, Sweeze. Thanks for stopping in, brother. Welcome back, Silver.
Thank you. Commissioner Bender.
This is my county. This is live.
National Seashore, so I just want to and just so people are aware now that Dan Brown, the park director for Gulf Islands National Seashore, has said that the park have been advised to follow the president's guidelines for opening up America again, including the gathering criteria, and so at this time they will not be reopening.
Let's do a show on vaccines sometime, Sweeze.
For what it's worth. So.
Thank you. Larry.
Larry Downs Jr., 12156 Hatburg Drive, Pensacola, Florida. And I'm going to touch this. That's the way I do it.
There's some more flag ready to do for you. He's got the same shirt.
I want to encourage y'all to reopen the beach and also get with whoever you need to do to open up all private businesses on private property.
This guy knows.
It was an overreach.
Yes.
It was a knee-jerk reaction from all of y'all. I heard each one of y'all watched the meeting from March 20th. I seen our Mayor Grover come up here and say we should act like Singapore. Literally. Y'all all scared to death. Oh no. What?
I ain't scared. No fear here. Tell them.
If you don't feel safe, then don't come out here. I've watched everybody in this room get within this close of each other.
Yeah.
Me and this mic. Obviously, this is a perception. Obviously, it's an illusion. Y'all know it.
It's a pandemic.
Know it, but yet,
scamdemic.
What are we doing here? We're infringing upon people's constitutional rights to work. State and federal.
Yep.
It's called restraint of trade. It's called obstruction of commerce. Who gave y'all or our governor or our president any rights to infringe upon our rights to free trade?
The laws that they pass themselves, which is bullshit.
Doesn't say, well, we can bankrupt you if we feel that it's protecting you. I don't need y'all to protect me. Citizens of this country. That's not y'all's job, is to protect us. I don't know where y'all and the rest of our representatives across this country got to thinking that they were so omnipotent that it's your job to protect the sheep. It's not. A country like this is not like Singapore. It's not like China. Douglas is correct.
They're going to find out real quick.
First on March 20th.
Keep up.
Instead of seconding that motion to close the beaches. That's wrong. It was wrong the first time. Now he's on the right side. And I know why. It was peer pressure. It's scared. 3 of y'all running for re-election. You don't want the polling. You don't want the bad polling. You don't want the people, the silent majority vote. They may not speak up here, but they vote.
Oh, yeah.
And they are watching y'all.
Yep.
And that's going to be a problem. If y'all continue, you need to reopen this. There's no phases. There's no phases of constitutional rights. Right to work. We either have them or we don't. This is a giant overreach.
The Constitution is more powerful than any institution.
Our city, all the way to the president.
You better
You
recognize.
realize, President, y'all see him. Every word that's coming out of his mouth he don't agree with and he don't believe in, but he's being pressured to do so.
Yep.
Open up this beach without restrictions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other speakers here for public forum?
They're not going to like that.
Yes, ma'am.
They didn't respond. They didn't like that at all. Woo, woo, woo. Too bad. Lucky I'm not there. Lucky I'm on bail right now and can't risk. Ooh.
Commissioners, my name is Diane Cheney, 2835 Beeler Road in McDavid. I drove an hour to get down here. Yes, Commissioner Berry, I'm in your district.
Yes, ma'am.
And I came down here to support the reopening of the beaches unrestricted. This is the first time I've spoken to the commission. This is the first time I've protested. I've never even written an ugly letter in my life. So obviously, I feel deeply about this. And I can tell you that I am speaking for a huge silent majority. And
Yep.
I will say that Larry Downs Jr. is correct. We vote. We may not speak up. We may not tell you our concerns.
She's from the country, y'all. The hills. Yeah, we got hills and hollers in Florida. And she's from right across the line from Alabama. And there is a lot of gun-toting redneck hillbillies up there where she's from. She said it took her an hour to get here.
They're very
Trust me. You don't want to mess with her neighbors.
Wonderful place that we know we enjoy because we live in this area. So I think that it was an overreach to close it in the first place, and I think you'd be taking the first
No,
step
it's the volume's all the way up. It's on their end. I'm sorry.
First step.
I could be quiet
Needs
though.
to be to let small businesses reopen. There are people who can't pay their bills. They don't want to be on unemployment. They want to work. That's what the American goal is. We want to achieve things, but we want to do it ourselves. So let us go back to work. And I think that maybe I don't understand the law well enough to understand how you guys have the authority to tell us we can't work. But I think that if you had that authority to stop us, you should have the authority to say we can go again, and that's what you should do. So I hope that you will reopen the beaches with no restrictions and then go on further, because you need to. I read something that Commissioner.
Oh, now they just stopped that. So, yeah, you had over 2,500 people watching with us here. I wish there was more, because I think this is the only people that are covering it. It's ABC News, WEAR, ABC News, Pensacola, Florida. And it's the Escambia County Commissioners holding a meeting on whether to reopen the beach here. And like I said, our beach here is an island, Santa Rosa Island. And Santa Rosa County, that side of the island, is going to open up this week. So it would be absurd for our side not to open up too, because otherwise everybody's just going to drive the other side, yeah. So they should be voting shortly to reopen. But what they're trying to figure out is, are they going to reopen with a bunch of rules and regulations, and that stuff. You've seen our people here are passionate about them reopening it, and I am too, and they need to just get on with it. They did briefly reopen it for a minute, a few days or whatever, and we were the first beach to be back open. And then people weren't social distancing enough for them, so they closed them back up, and now here we are again. There are beaches open in Florida right now, limited use and stuff. More than likely, they're going to open up our beach again, and they're going to say again that you can't lay down or even sit down for more than a minute or two or something, and and you got to keep your distance. from other people, of course. We'll see. We'll see. It's all retarded. It's getting absurd. Here's some local comments. I'll try to read some of these comments before you real quick. Got too heated, too much truth. This person just said, anyone at the meeting that actually lives at the beach? I'm sure there is. China does not care, I think they said. Yeah. They were telling somebody else. Open everything. If you don't want to go out, stay home, Melissa says. Yep. What do we have here? Is there another? There might be another live stream. Hang on. The county might be showing it. I'm going to check on this link right here and see. Would be smart for them to. Yeah. Yep. Here we go. Okay, we got it. We're back. We are back.
Just other type comments.
And it's louder.
The emails that we got this morning after 9:15 will also be made.
This is
part of the
live.
Permanent minutes, but are not totaled in the tally that I discussed. So now we can move into the agenda. We have.
That's funny value.
So the meeting was properly advertised. We've moved on that. Move to items to be added to the agenda, and then we'll do a brief commissioners forum. Commissioner Underhill.
Mr. Chairman, I'll skip my commissioners forum, but I do have two additional add-ons to bring. Those have been provided to each of you at your desks as well as to the press desk. So I'd like to have those added to the agenda as well.
Commissioner May.
I have one add-on, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Commissioner Bergosh.
Nothing to add. Is that the epicenter?
Yeah.
Got it.
Commissioner Bender.
No, sir, I don't have anything.
And I don't necessarily have anything. Madam Administrator, Madam Attorney, anything? No. Okay. Move to adopt the item, the agenda as amended.
So moved.
All right, is there a second? Please vote.
Here we go, folks.
Items, agenda as amended passes 5-0. All right, so now we'll move into Commissioners Forum. Commissioner Underhill, you didn't have any comments?
It's going to open.
What I would like to do, though, one of the speakers did ask that the letter from the hospitals be put into the record for this meeting.
Sure.
The original letter that we used as part of the justification for closing the meeting is a part of the record of that meeting. So, Madam Administrator, I would ask if we have that letter, which I believe was dated, what was that, the 20th? Or, I'm sorry, the 21st, if we could have that entered into the record, as a part of this meeting. Is that possible, Madam Administrator?
Yes, sir. Are you asking for it to be read?
No, it does not need to be read into the record. Just have it added in so that it is part of the public record,
Yes,
just
sir.
as a matter of time, because I do know that all 5 commissioners have read it in detail. And while our interpretations of it will be part of our debate and discussion today, the letter does say what the letter says. Thanks.
Commissioner Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly want to thank our PIO department, our human service department. They've been going well beyond the call of duty, as well as our first responders and our public safety people. There's a lot of work that's been going on by our county employees, leaving their families and working hard. So I certainly want to recognize them for their good work. Also, Sheriff Morgan, Chip Simmons, thank you for your work. A lot of the food giveaways, a lot of the testing centers could not have worked without Chief Deputy Simmons and Sheriff Morgan. I certainly appreciate the work that you two gentlemen have done to really help us out in the testing. We're in your district on yesterday, 306 tests. Commissioner
I
Bailey,
protest the tests.
We've gotten a lot of support from our law enforcement.
You can shove them all up your.
Chairman, I would like,
what?
as we go into discussing the item on hand, if there's any data that's available that's not included in our backup that staff would aid us in making our decision, I would like for staff to make sure that we have that data before we begin discussing this item. If there's any other data,
get on with it,
that's pertinent to the issue, I'd love to have it.
Okay.
I do have the dashboard, but I would think that there may be more information. If not, then so be it. But if there is other information that helps us, I would like that information to be a part of our backup in our discussion.
Super. Commissioner Bergosh.
Just a couple of quick things. First, I want to thank the Beulah Scoop and the operators of the Beulah Scoop. It's a Facebook site, and then the community out there who came up with an idea about 2 weeks back to open up the equestrian center to food trucks. And
Yep.
they were going to have one food truck, and the food truck was going to pay $75 a day just for the privilege of going out there. So they asked for our office to get involved, which we did. And thanks to Mike Rhodes and the park staff and Administrator Gilly, what we've got going on now is we're not going to charge those food trucks anything.
Wow.
And we're bringing 4 of them out each day. And
that's cool.
Over the next 5 days, we're going to have 10 different varieties of food trucks out at the Equestrian Center in Beulah, starting at 11 a.m.
I'm gonna go out there.
The schedule's been posted. I've got it on my
That's a
blog.
horse.
Look at what kind of restaurants are going.
Horse
and what
place,
times
if
they'll
you didn't
be there.
know.
It's a great thing because the restaurants, the brick and mortar, they're really getting crushed right now. The takeout, the delivery is not enough to make up for the revenue they've lost by not having their in-house capacity and all the other things
Yeah.
that they sell. So this is a great way to support.
I don't think I'm going to like
really
Chip
hit
Simmons
with
as much
pandemic.
as
So I want to thank
I like
the
Morgan. I
staff,
think Morgan's
of the Parks
a
Department
fair
and the Equestrian
sheriff
Center in particular.
as much
I
as
was
he
there
can be,
yesterday after
Ben.
work, and the Chick-fil-A food truck had no line, which I thought was
I don't
kind of
trust
strange
Chip
because the
at
Wiener
all.
Shack dog, other one had a line of 15 to 20 people. So I walked up to the Chick-fil-A truck and he said, we got here at 4:15.
Chick-fil-A without a
we were totally
K.
sold out. So the Beulah community, props to you guys for stepping up.
Yeah, I know
The
you're out
restaurant's a
there,
great
Ben.
idea, a great example of us kind of facilitating.
Have you been there yet,
some good
Ben?
things for the community and the private market. Also want to let folks know that District 1
You should
has
check
also
out
gonna have
the
a very cool feature coming
Equestrian
up very soon.
Center.
One of the
Food
young
trucks.
men who has gone through our economic development incubator, CoLab, has graduated from that program, developed a very successful company doing college promotions. But of course, with all the colleges being closed, he's had to pivot into some new ventures. So this guy's super intelligent, great idea. He's going to do a pop-up drive-in. Remember the drive-ins when you were young? And you
If
drive
you
in?
didn't know,
And it's something that's going to be done at the
Ben,
Interstate
Machine
Fairgrounds
Monkey
in District 1.
lives in our area
And
too.
The neat thing about this
Sorry
is it's gonna
to
be totally
expose you,
touch
Machine,
free,
but
no contact. You go online with an app. You
Machine
buy your
Monkey in the
ticket,
chat here.
You drive in through the windshield. You show your ticket. They scan it, and they're even going to have concession. Once you're parked in an area, they've got a 30-foot screen. You can buy the app. You can buy popcorn, hot dogs, nachos, whatever you want, and they bring it by a golf cart, bring it to your car. So no contact, no touch, and a way for a lot of the people that are getting cabin fever with this pandemic to get out and at least do something. So that's going to happen starting this Thursday in District 1 at the fairgrounds. So a lot of cool things happening in District 1, a lot of entertainment and food choices despite the pandemic. There's always things that we can do. And then finally, I want to thank the CMR department. Over the last nearly a month since we've had a meeting, they've really, really stepped up, in particular David Heroux, who gets up every Wednesday morning very early to join me for a series of coffees with the commissioners that we've had, where we have spoken with Don Rudolph, Gay Nord, Dr. Lanza, Mark Faulkner, the medical professionals, because, I've heard each and every speaker get up and give their opinion. And we all have opinions, right? We know the
Welcome
saying.
back, Don.
Everyone's got one. But what I like to do for my constituents is to bring in the experts, not the people with opinions, but the guys who have.
These are the experts.
These. And people who really study this and live this day in and day out. So I want to thank each and every
Consult
guest
these.
who's joined me on my coffees over the last
Please.
month and a half. We're going to keep doing them until we're through this
Oh,
pandemic.
dear.
But I will say this: the constituents appreciate your
Open
willingness,
the
Dr. Lanza,
beach.
Faulkner, Gay Nord, Don Rudolph. We appreciate your time to come out in the mornings and do that. A lot of folks have watched tens of thousands of views of those coffees. So we're going to keep doing that. And I will segue into tomorrow morning, because we all know we're transitioning from the phase where we were into the next phase. We're going to start opening. We see it around the country. We hear the frustrations. I've heard it loud and clear. And so tomorrow morning,
Better hear it.
coffee. We're going to have Nathan Boyles, who's the Santa Rosa County Commissioner. We're going to have Sam Parker, who's the Santa Rosa County Commissioner, on with me, the administrator, and Eric Gilmore. And then later in the morning, we're going to have a second coffee at 9 o'clock, and we're going to have Congressman Matt Gaetz is going to join me. We're going to talk about the federal response to the pandemic, the next set of stimulus bills that are coming. I have a lot of different questions for him because I'm concerned about our debt that we're taking on. So that'll be at 9 o'clock, and you can watch both of those coffees at Commissioner Burgash. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Bender.
Well, gosh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
darn
Of
it.
course,
Open my
I wanna
beach,
thank all of
for
our
gosh.
staff that have helped us through this. We have on the beach at least taken this opportunity to address some concerns, get some projects done that we may not have otherwise been able to, namely striping some of the parking lots and other things. And so I would say we are gearing up there with our public works. So I know Charlie's in the back and want to thank
All right, Zilrin.
staff
Enjoy your sun and your garden work.
That when we do
Watch
reopen
out
the
for
beach,
snakes.
That that we have.
Thanks for
nice
being here.
amenities and that we're ready to go and that everything's in place. And then of course all the other staff that have just been working through this. I would also like to remind everybody that we did go all electronic tolling, no cash at the toll booth.
Yep, cashless. I told y'all that.
Florida, did the same.
Stupid.
And we were able to complete that ahead of schedule, getting all the signage and markings up, and so that is in place and will be the case moving.
No
forward.
more cash. You can't have cash and get on the beach.
Or other electronic.
Got to have the mark of the
device,
beast. I mean,
you can do that now. And not get the service charge. Again, the toll for the plaza is still $1.
$1. You can holla on the beach.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bergosh, you said that the idea for the food trucks came from some of the folks out in Beulah. That's great. Similarly, I had some of the folks from Cantonment Improvement Committee reach out last week about trying to do walk-up testing in Carver Park, and want to thank them for the idea, and then Chandra Smiley and Sandra
free corona testing in the hood.
For being so receptive to that idea, and they really turned around just one phone call from me to ending up on site, walking through the logistics of the park and how to stand up the program within a few hours. And we had, as Commissioner May mentioned, we had a very successful day of testing at Carver Park yesterday. Did 306 tests with a number of that was the maximum number of kits that they had with them to test, and had a few dozen people that we've had to try to redirect to the other cantonment site today or to one of the other sites in the county to follow up with their testing. So that was I think that was a huge success, and I want to thank the folks in the county that have been in addition to those mentioned, the first responders, et cetera, the ones in public works that people might not think about being out there every day, but I don't see Wes being in the audience necessarily, but Wes has probably been forced to talk to me a number of times per day during this entire time,
Man, y'all better get on and vote.
And
quit telling your damn life story.
Working on a daily basis and have made a lot of progress. Have taken advantage of there being a little bit less traffic in some areas to get some work done. And obviously we've got a board meeting coming next week, and I think they've also worked. Very hard to get a lot of items onto the agenda that are going to present progress and projects moving forward. Even though we haven't necessarily had a meeting in a few weeks, so I'm excited about that.
Steve.
Yes. Commissioner Mo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like you, I do want to thank Community Health, Sandra Donaldson and Sandra Smiley. Obviously, Don and Justin are doing a great job at Ascension in doing testing. But the work that they've done.
How you gonna name a hospital Ascension?
It's commendable.
That's ridiculous, man. Come here to ascend. We'll help you in ascending at the hospital. Yes.
Today, but anybody
Ascension.
that doesn't believe that this is real,
Not
follow me down to my district in Southern Oaks and go into a mother's house whose daughter who worked there.
The Lord's going to help me with Ascension. Thank you very much.
Vast amount of people who have contracted the virus right a few blocks from this building. And so I do want to send my condolences to that family and to send encouragement to all of our nursing home workers that whatever we can do as a county and whatever I can do from my position, we're going to continue to do that.
Come on, May. May you vote today, May?
But certainly this virus is very serious.
Get on with it, Mr. May.
Thank you, Commissioner May, and I'll use a minute. And I did make sure with the family that it was okay to mention, but I think all of us, may have had some interactions with folks that have been positive.
Absolutely.
Vote D's.
That I've done work for 20 years, a very close friend, and the patriarch of the family passed.
S. Barry. Barry Sataro. Look, stands for.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
Satoro Barry.
Athlete, Steve, you and I grew up with Nesimus Henry, a minister of the gospel, a great Woodham High football player.
I saw that.
He died of COVID-19, and he was
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Human Arms, which is Oakwood Tears, and so it has hit home. We've had local pastors to contract the virus, and so it is a plague in
COVID is a
community, and so
lie.
our prayers are out to all who have been adversely affected.
Only
Won the League
COVIDiots
One State Championship
die.
too. I know he was on one of the
Get
other
that?
teams.
Only
I think he had 2 state
COVIDiots
champions,
die.
Ronald Stallworth and then Kerry Watkins. I think Chip probably would remember, but Nesman, a great athlete and a great minister and just a great person. And he will be truly missed from the Mobile community, the Atmore community, and the Pensacola community.
Thank you. Madam Administrator, now we'll get into the work.
Mr.
work.
Chairman, the only thing I was going to ask is if you
Vote.
did want to do a moment of silence in recognition of the families that have lost loved ones during this before we start the testimony, the debate. And then I also wanted to mention that we did lose one of our employees on Sunday. I let you all know that Mr. Bullock did pass, and he was our food service manager at the camp. And then
At the
last thing
FEMA
I can
camp?
share with you is that we do have a lot of staff that's here ready and available to answer your questions and to help you as you go through this decision.
Help these. Help
Thank you. I do
these.
think the moment of silence would
Get
be
back to the
appropriate.
beach.
And just to clarify that was not a case. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't
No,
need
it
to
was
get
not.
into
I didn't want
details,
to
but
say what
yeah,
it was,
right,
but
yeah.
it was a.
It wasn't a, yeah.
Yes.
But it got marked as a corona death, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, it is a tradition in this building that we start with.
You ain't fooling nobody.
Prayer. And I know that we, obviously it was really kind of a crazy morning, but I would like to continue that tradition today.
Oh, they're going to pray.
Absolutely. And I apologize. This not on my agenda, and it was a little bit little bit different starting to the meeting.
I'm sure that nobody perceives it as a slight.
It won't be praying to Mecca.
If you would please join me in the pledge, and then we'll take a moment of silence.
All right, I'm gonna stand too.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Y a la República que representa una sola nación bajo Dios. Y sucia.
And please join me in a moment of silence.
Father, please put it on their heart to do the right thing without any restrictions. Open our beach. Please, Father, in Jesus' name I pray.
Thank you very much. I do apologize to my colleagues and the folks in attendance and observing. Madam Administrator, do you have anything to present before the board begins discussion?
No, sir. I mean, we've provided you with the most recent healthcare data.
Right.
We've provided you with spreadsheets related to what other beaches around the state are
Propaganda!
doing, information related to Santa Rosa County, and then we do. We would just ask for your guidance in terms of any information related to the reopening of the beaches.
Open it with no restrictions.
Super.
Let's go now.
Commissioner Bergosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to briefly make my thoughts on this matter perfectly clear for the record. A little over a month ago, I had a meeting with Dr. Lanza, and we talked about the parks being open, but the beaches being closed. And that's on film. It's recorded. Anyone can go back and look. And at that point, I suggested that, if it's okay to have the parks open, why not the beaches?
Yep.
Out of deference to the hundreds of phone calls and emails that I received subsequent to those comments, I decided to defer to the experts. And the experts did send us a letter, and they did urge us not to have our beaches reopened. So
Tough
I just
luck.
want to say, I've never been opposed to opening the beaches.
Bullshit.
I understand that the fear was that, like spring break, it would become a magnet and people would go there. It'd be difficult for the law enforcement to enforce it. But from a logical standpoint, it really makes no sense because we're talking about Home Depot and Lowe's and the crowded.
Not the Home
supermarkets
Depot.
and
He
people
said
that
Home
can't go to
Depot.
the beach. But I will say the outpouring of citizen opinion has been overwhelmingly in favor of opening the beach. And I just get the sense in looking around the country, looking at other states, other counties, municipalities, what they're doing. The frustration is mounting among small businesses. There's no question. But as I said
Mounting
earlier in the
too
meeting, that's
with
not
people.
what we're here to talk about today. That decision was taken out of our hands by the governor. He issued the executive order. Escambia County did not close one business, one hair salon, one dental office. We did not do that. I just want to make that clear. But we do support the governor's order, but we didn't make that choice. What we did was we followed
I don't
the expert
support it.
advice of the medical community and the presidents of the hospitals that begged us begged us, pleaded with us to close that beach. And we did. We've shown a great deal of strength and unity in doing that. But I just want to say this before I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. Throughout the country, not just the Board of County Commissioners in Escambia County, but state legislatures, governors, mayors,
Quit stalling.
commissioners, senators, congressmen,
Stalling.
Running the gamut, have stepped up and listened to the medical community and the fear. And let's just be very plain about this. The reality of what we did, we listened to everyone and they said, you have to bend the curve. We do not want the hospitals to be overrun. That was the fear the hospitals could not keep up. There wasn't PPE. And I would say, looking at all the facts and looking at
no
where
curve.
we were at 6 weeks removed from that, we succeeded. The curve is bending. The number of new infections as a percentage is going down. The trend line is going downward. The fear that I have now is that people will not have the will and the fortitude and really just the guts to open our economy back up. We've done tremendous damage to this country.
You better get some
Tremendous
guts.
damage, but we did what we were asked to do. I talked to folks and
Well,
told
we
them this
stick
is gonna be a
something in
difficult
your
decision,
guts.
and it is. We've got to get it right, or else people will die. And we don't know what we don't know about this virus. We don't know. We know there's been
Miley
470
Cyrus is
people
the
in Escambia
virus.
County that we know about that have it, and of that, 3% have died. All right, that's a real number, right? 3%, 10% have been hospitalized, 3% have died. What we don't know is how many people are walking around with it. So is that percentage really that high? Of course not. It's much lower. But
I'm walking around with
said,
these.
we bent the curve. We destroyed our economy. We've taken on $7 trillion in debt as a nation. We can't keep this economy bottled up any further. But opening barbershops, opening dental offices, opening medicals, that's not our purview. That's not the fight to pick with us. We don't have the right to unilaterally say that. And if you're someone who really feels passionate about it, you can watch right now on the news. There are people throughout the country that are opening their shops. You always have that right. Don't let Jeff Bergosh tell you not to do what you feel like you want to do. It would be interesting to see what
But we
happens
will
if you
send the
open
National
barbershop.
Guard. Trust
Because
that.
a lot of people believe what has happened is unconstitutional. And I don't necessarily disagree. So before I leave my comments, I'm going to ask our lawyer,
Constitution.
was it legal? What has happened to these businesses? Does the governor have
More
the
powerful
authority
than
to make
any
a business shut
institution.
down? And if so, under what authority? I would like an answer for that because I think a lot of people would
Under the
have an
stupid
answer to that. We're not under
laws
martial
that y'all
law.
snuck
Can you
in.
close down a business?
Emergency
Yeah,
laws.
Shake your head, but give me an answer.
You know, the extent to which he's actually shut businesses is actually fairly narrow if you look at his orders. But that said, I mean, it does
Feedback.
appear as though that the governor does have some pretty broad powers, as do local governments, as does the president when it comes to health emergencies. So I would say that, yeah, he probably can do that. The extent to which he actually has, I think, is fairly interesting.
Fairly interesting.
From my perspective, as I end my comments, we've cut this economy very, very deep. We bent the curve. It's time to roll. It's time to roll again. And doing it in a safe manner is what I intend to vote to do. But make no mistake about it, we will never get to a point where we eliminate all risk and all virus. And if we do that, we will have no economy left. We will have no businesses left to come back to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Underhill and then Commissioner Bittner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll reserve my comments for just the matter that we have before us, which is the issue of the agenda item of the issue of opening the beaches or not. I have, for the sake of being able to kind of promote the discussion today, I wrote up a draft resolution.
Here we go.
Whereases that I included in there are the ones that basically unarguable statements of when different actions were taken by different levels of government. I have left off any whereases that might be still debatable. So I am open to hearing friendly amendments. I intend to move this as a motion to get the dialogue running. I'm open to friendly amendments on additional whereases, but keeping in mind that for those out in the audience that are not aware, when we do the whereas parts of a motion, that's done to codify as an agreement among us that those things are factual. So I tried to be very careful, understanding that probably the five of us are all at five different starting places, not to include any of that. So the getting past the whereases, I get to the therefores, which is that, and my motion will be that we rescind our action closing our beaches, and that all outdoor public spaces and their associated parking areas shall be open to the public from sunrise to sunset or in accordance with the regularly posted hours if more restrictive. I have specifically included the parking areas here. I know that some of our peers around the state of Florida have not done that. I am very concerned as somebody who lives on one of our barrier islands. My access to our beaches is unfettered, but many of my constituents rely on those parking spaces to get access. People coming down from McDavid, people coming from anywhere else in the county. If we don't open the parking spaces, then we would in fact be creating a disparity among our citizens, and I think we all seek to not do that.
Commissioner, if you don't mind,
Please.
let me interject something.
Sure.
You're going to have the floor back to
Thank you.
talk as long as you wish, but I'm going to be supportive of our board. There's, whether the items are five or six issues, it's going to be whether it's the related to the time, whether we're going to have any restrictions, whether it's going to relate to the parking lots, whether it's going to relate to the public facilities that are on the beach, the restrooms, gazebos, et cetera. What I would envision would be the board giving direct feedback about these 5 or 6 or 7 bullet points. From that feedback, then I would expect the administrator and the attorney to draft the resolution based on that board action, rather than working off of the document that you prepared.
Huh.
I'm going to give you the floor back
Wow.
to talk through what you think is appropriate for those 5 or 6 bullets, or how many ever the board decides. But I'm more confident in their ability to draft something based on the 5 or 6 minued items that the board is going to give feedback about.
What a prick!
That's acceptable. The second item that I have included here is that we would require the county administrator and direct the county administrator to work with Santa Rosa Island Authority and the Escambia County Sheriff's Office to create a strategy for enforcement of social distancing, to include the groups no greater than 10 individuals, as well as
Johnston Beach is too far for me, brother.
Then the other thing that I would like to add in here, and recognizing that the state parks and the Gulf Islands National Seashore are outside of our jurisdiction, we do.
Yeah, that's a good question. I thought there'd be more people. There was people outside, Ben, flat.
When we made the action to close, Superintendent Dan Brown was here and said that the Gulf Islands National Seashore would follow the direction of the local authority. I would ask that we include in our motion today, or any further action, that we continue that practice of asking Gulf Islands National Seashore and the state parks to effectively to reflect the leadership and direction here locally. Failing to do so creates a problem from an from an enforcement point of view, and creates confusion out on the street. And given the high tensions that we currently have, and people's adamant desire to get back to work, or back to as close to normal as possible, it's important that whatever we do today is so clear that it does not create that kind of confusion for the first responders that actually have to be the ones that implement it. So those are the things that I would like to see in the action, whatever action we take today. And Mr. Chairman, obviously, I have no concern about where our starting point is, and certainly support your direction that you just mentioned. I will say that as I look at the coronavirus summary for Escambia County, the dashboard that all of you have, it's going to be, we have been so low and so flat here in Escambia County compared to a lot of places like New York, that demonstrating that downward trend when you've already been flat is going to be much harder. But I want to point out a couple of things that I think are extremely important here. The total number of people going into our hospital.
Maybe they didn't allow more people inside. I don't know, but they're going to open the beach. They're not
COVID
stupid.
Consistent issues is down around 1 or 2% of those going into the ER. And then the two graphs there at the bottom really indicate fairly clearly that while COVID, and I think no rational person has ever thought that this isn't a serious matter. It definitely
It's not serious. The only thing that's serious is the New World Order implementing the beat system.
Look at that, and then you also
Dude.
take a look at the total number of hospitalizations and deaths. Total hospitalizations in Escambia County, 38. Total deaths in Escambia.
Yeah, I could get to our beach a lot quicker.
Those, no doubt, and certainly that's not even a matter of debate. But when you look at that in a population,
I mean, you know what I mean. Pensacola Beach.
It is clear that our medical system here in Escambia County has gotten past the worst time, and they are able to handle the current load and the perceived load, even in a worst case scenario. Thank you.
Commissioner Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jeff, I think, I had a guest view in the paper over the weekend that said, on March 20th, we didn't have the luxury of making the wrong decision. We were presented data from our healthcare professionals. Well, one, a request, but two, also just data from across the country saying what we could expect. We were seeing what was happening in other parts of our country, in the world. We
almost bucket bong time.
Large numbers of deaths in Italy, and I was told the reason they were so large wasn't because of the makeup of the population. It was because of the resource availability. So they were having to decide which patients had ventilators and things like that, and of course,
ventilate these
in our area. I think the other thing we had going on is that we were in the middle of spring break, so we had a lot of visitors to the area that could contribute to the use of resources in it. And then when we met 13 days later, again, we still didn't. I think we can all say that we've had trouble not just getting information, but getting accurate information. And that is, I'm not placing blame on any entities.
I'm blaming you if you don't open a beach. Mr. Bender, bend over for the New World Order to stick it in you. Bend her right over.
That's not accurate or is not true. So I'd say
District
the
4,
shooting on December
poor.
6th at NAS Pensacola, and we know the reports that we were hearing that morning, which ones turned out to be true, which ones fortunately were not. But again, we didn't have the luxury of being wrong, and so we did take steps to help protect our community. I'd say our community and our health care.
Did you know Machine Monkey?
I just talked with another commissioner down in South Florida.
That
where we're seeing our
Israeli News Live. Steve from Israeli News Live.
They're still going.
His family used to own a huge part of what is now NAS Pensacola, and they were robbed of their property so that the base could be expanded.
And fortunately, we aren't seeing those numbers.
Yep.
And I think the other thing with the beaches is that we closed what was enticing people to come here.
Yep.
And I'd say the
Duh.
consequence was
They weren't coming for the crime.
But we don't have the resources to enforce locals only. We don't have any measures in place that it's an ID only checkpoint.
You can't enforce these.
And so, I don't think any of us took our two decisions lightly to close the beach, but with the
can't close these
from the healthcare professionals to help them combat this virus.
Hi, Tammy. Welcome. I used to live in Central Florida.
I was up to a little after midnight reading the 1,500 pages of comments that was sent.
I lived and worked for the city of Orlando.
I would say more of the no comments.
I lived in Jacksonville also briefly.
Have the testing information,
but lived in the city of Orlando for years.
And that was 10 days ago. I think that was again part of the reason why we pushed this meeting closer to the May, April 30th stay-at-home order being lifted, was to get more information. And so we do know more. Again, our testing, those operating the tests, they're doing target testing.
No tests, no vaccine, no tests, no vaccine.
Everybody tests, and so yes, we see our numbers going up.
Vaccines are voodoo. Yeah, Wildwood, pretty cool.
What's going on
nice.
In our community?
Nice area.
It's in those facilities which still need assistance, and they fall under state purview. So the state is helping in some of those cases across the state. But what have we done here? Again, our early cases were those that had traveled outside the county, either to Egypt or elsewhere that were hotspots. And then I think a lot of the comments were, yes, we need to reopen our beaches, or even the ones that said no said we don't want all the visitors coming here. I think we also saw a lot saying that we're doing this for.
You better hope the tourists come back.
Either for ourselves or our friends. I would say most of nearly 99.9% of all the comments I've gotten on this have come from the public comments. And I would say the majority, I would even almost say up to 35, 40% came from District 4. And that spread out throughout my district, not just the beach. I mean, there were people in Ferry Pass.
That's where I'm at, Ferry Pass. Shout out to Ferry Pass.
To those that are tuned into those that were in my district, but it seemed overwhelming that District 4 was represented in those.
Because the money's in District
course,
4. You New World Order whore.
I do think it's a great thing that I do get to sit over the beach, even though it belongs to all of us. I truly appreciate that that's part of the district. And a number of residents out there, both ways on opening and closing.
Come to a district.
I did listen to the Santa Rosa County Commissioners meeting the other day, and along with Administrator Gilley,
to my district.
With the other counties to our east that are currently proposed to open on May 1st. We have been trying to work together so that we can reopen as a region, that we don't funnel everybody to one county or one area, but we're also all different. Of course, Okaloosa has the 2 different times, and I don't think they have any restrictions on what you can do. Santa Rosa is open for 5 hours in the afternoon. Walton County is open all day, but does limit restrictions. And so I think we need to look at what's unique to Pensacola Beach and what we can do. I think that
open it up now. No restrictions. Now.
And how different we are was when Santa Rosa County Public Safety said they had to double the number of lifeguards from 5 to 10. I think, Dave, you probably have 5 lifeguards just hanging out at the station, and not hanging out, but just doing their job right there. And so, and I did have the opportunity to talk with our public safety.
No, my name's the same.
Who said
it should
overall, be. He's been
Tommy, tell the truth.
Surprised with the
yeah, it looks the same to me.
And people have followed.
No alteration.
There have been
that's all you're gonna get from me is the truth.
Over the last, I guess, 5 weeks. And
that I know, that I seek
but again,
out.
People
that God
have
lets me
been
see.
fairly respectful of what we asked
Holy
them
Spirit.
to do. I hope that
they got time for lies
as we take action today.
They got time for these guys to be playing around. Open my beach,
so that we can continue to reopen.
Doc Michael back in the house.
County had a checkpoint to get on the island. We kept that part of the island open. We wanted people to go to the businesses, go to the restaurants, go out and use the bike path.
Time for a bucket bong in 4 minutes. Bucket bong hit in 4 minutes. It will be 4:20 somewhere.
So if I'd say if people are worried about a lot of visitors coming here, I did have the opportunity to work with some of the hoteliers on the beach this week. Just like before we voted to close it, when we saw everyone else closing and worried they were coming here, they said they would go to 50% capacity. The hotels that are open have said that based on their brand, the number of hotels that they have, they'll limit their 750 hotel rooms to 50%. Did I get that right, Rusty? And then those other rooms will also be available to the healthcare workers that they've been donating. The healthcare workers are housed on separate floors, so there wouldn't be any interaction on those floors.
Vote.
So for the people that are worried about a lot of visitors coming here, again, everyone's ready to get out. We really
vote already. We're ready to get to the beach.
A lot.
Beach.
But hopefully, and I appreciate the hoteliers that have taken these steps voluntarily to limit the number that would actually come out onto Pensacola Beach. And of course, Mr. Chairman, as we have the meeting next week, I think we'll probably reevaluate everything that we do today, and see how we handle these first 9 days, to see how the county continues to track. And as I said earlier, the Gulf Islands National Seashore has, being a federal agency, they have said that they have to follow the president's guidelines, and of course, I appreciate the fact
follow
that
these
our guidelines when we closed, so that we didn't run into that issue of us being closed and them being open. But I think we also have to respect their policies and what they're being asked to do from their hires up. We look very much forward to the opportunity of being able to get back out in the Gulf Islands National Seashore. And of course, I saw a number of comments regarding the wildlife. We still have done some patrols out there and have marked nests and things like that. So as I was saying, that everything is a little different. Personally, I think that to limit the time on the beach is asking people you're forcing the number of people that go out there into a smaller window of time. And so I would be open to having the beach open all day. I think that people it would give them time to space out. We are not trying to promote a party atmosphere. We are trying to get people to get out and get exercise, to get some sun. I'd say we'd ask that you stay active and not do it. I did have a request that we close the area under the pier. That is notoriously a gathering spot for people. And I think we can, I would ask that we do that at least for the next 9 days and reevaluate.
It's 4:20 somewhere. Whoop, whoop.
Based on the discussions I've had.
Well, Commissioner, with the meeting being on the 7th, and depending on the action of the board, but
Vote.
anticipated open of May 1, we would be kind of finishing that first 7 days
So
on our board meeting. But and that portion under the pier is closed now, right? Correct. So you're talking about keeping that portion closed. That's what you're discussing?
Yes. Okay. So yes, the beach is closed right now, so it would just be
continuing that portion under the pier.
Just under the pier.
Okay.
It would be very small. I think you could leave it open for people to go from one side to the other, and of course the lifeguards have their opening. But again, that would just be to help.
Oh yeah.
To try to not have people loitering under there. Is that the thought? Okay. So what about stopping in other areas on the beach? I mean, where in the more open scene, not talking about, obviously we've gotten spreadsheets of what other places did throughout the state. Some use language about you have to have some type.
I got some language for you.
That's not necessarily what you're saying. You're just saying you're just saying under that pier, we don't want non-continuous movement under the pier.
Correct, under the pier, non-continuous. I would say it's, of course, a lot of it's the chicken or the egg question of either timing or activities. Again, I think that 3,000 people are planning to go out to the beach to have them go in a 3-hour window versus an 8-hour window or a 12-hour window. It does allow them to spread out a little bit more. I would say that I don't, Madam Administrator, are you willing to make some other recommendations regarding facilities and things like that from
Yes.
staff?
Yes. So what I would say is we have looked into making sure that we have portalets and hand washing, sanitation facilities available. We do have plans for cleaning the facilities that we have, but we would like this first week to be able to use other alternative hand washing and portalets. And then I would also suggest that as far as the pavilions are concerned, they are sheltered, so they may not come in direct contact with the light, as some people have suggested. Maybe something that can help in the disinfecting of the surfaces. So we would like to barricade the pavilions for this first week, if you don't mind, and let us monitor those facilities as well. Those would be the only things that we would mention.
And Commissioner, I'm sure that we've all had multiple discussions with Janice and with Allison about some of the different menu items that we'd be discussing, and and I certainly give you the floor back, but a little bit of my opinion on those items. It seems you try to think about, okay, what's the outcome of what we do? I mean, best case scenario, worst case scenario. I would be concerned about the comfortability of how if we immediately have the restrooms. If we have a vendor, the contractor out there to provide, one use stuff in the portalets, okay. But or okay, would the county clean it every 30 minutes? Would the county clean it every 15 minutes? Would we be, would the expectation be we would clean it after every visitor goes in or something? I mean, how feasible is that? And and at least during this first few days. So we meet obviously today, then we'll be together the subsequent 3 Thursdays as well. So we're going to be together very regularly to evaluate whatever decisions we make today.
Well, get on with making the decision, damn it. I'm really,
I appreciate that.
really ready.
Yes, I would expect that we
You guys to grow some balls
of those facilities.
And some brains.
Having to clean the larger restrooms creates the closure of all of them at one time. I hear that oftentimes it takes a deputy going into the ladies' room or the men's room to get people out so they can go in and do the cleaning. And so I think that opens up the serviceability of those stations. And it's you look at the activities. Of course, we want to follow the CDC guidelines. No more than 10 people in a group, keeping the 6 feet.
All right, Robert, if you don't mind, interrupt you real quick. Is there any objection to that being certainly a portion of the outcome of the meeting today? Those 2 guidelines being a part of the outcome. That would seem to be one thing that would be consensus no matter what the board does. The continuing of social distancing, the no more than 10 people and 6 feet apart, those 2 basic things.
You could be 6 inches from these.
And you want to?
I will have some questions based on some of your comments.
Okay. And so we've looked at, of course, different ways we can enforce that. I think that talking with our public safety director out there, I think the lifeguards would feel comfortable doing that. We also have.
I hope you've been able to do some traveling, Dawn.
Control officer.
I feel sorry for somebody that's lived around a big city their whole life.
It would be the sheriff's department that could.
I've lived in 6 states,
with non-compliance.
14 cities,
Chairman and Vice Chairman,
and I've
also
lived in the
asked the
country,
boards and also the Parks Department to be prepared,
the hills. I've lived obviously around the beach. I've lived on the beach before. Basically, a lot closer. Yeah.
Everybody knows that's a part.
Okay. I don't like big cities. I've lived in Nashville and other big cities, and I prefer the rural areas.
Requested that we do exercises. We saw what Jacksonville Beach did in allowing exercising. I would say that would be most of the comments that they didn't say just open up wide open. Some of the thought with that is that, again, you're not necessarily enticing people to come to the area if they can only exercise, if they can only lay out in a beach chair. You get into some scenarios, though, of a family that goes out there and the kids run around and the parent just wants to sit and watch or something like that.
Come on, man.
I think we'd also have some trouble enforcing that, similar to the alcohol ordinance that we had in the parking lot for so long that as soon as someone come by, they take a step to the side and they're no longer standing still.
This is definitely live. But they are.
Let's talk about testing real quick, because this is an important part of the decision. I confirmed yesterday, we have test kits available and we have PPEs available for the hospitals.
Don't even go there if he's trying to say you got to get tested to go to the beach. I'll be on my way down there if he comes out with some stupid shit like that. Well, we'll give you a test kit and we'll give you a mask and some gloves, and that'll be the only way you can go on the beach.
Here in the long-term care facilities when we started doing the target testing, but otherwise have not seen a
test these
in the community of that. So I just want to clarify that's one reason why I am advocating for this. So, Mr. Chairman, if we want to get any comment on activities or what they would like to see allowed.
If you want to make some brief comments, Commissioner May hasn't made any, and I'm going to make a few before.
Come on, guys.
Too far into it. Whatever.
This ain't rocket science.
You're welcome to continue making some comments.
No, I'd be open to comments from the board.
All right. Commissioner May, I don't see your light on. I'll make a few comments. Just in general, before we get into some of the specifics, the action that the board took on the 20th was, obviously the only action that the board took was related to the beaches and the public areas on the beach. Regardless of what maybe said, maybe said on the radio or in social media or what have you. There's a high degree of frustration, and I feel that I certainly perceive that from comments today, as well as emails and even comments that aren't necessarily geared directly towards us on social media.
Come on, Sotero Barry.
I understand that. I don't know that a lot of it accurately falls at the board's feet, but certainly we did take an action to close the beach. But what I would say is we did that at a passionate urging of the healthcare professionals, including the 3 hospital CEOs, as well as Dr. Lanza, who is in any hierarchy that we have in leadership in Escambia County. The Escambia County Medical Director, the employee of the Florida Department of Health, is going to be the top of that food chain, the top of that leadership chain. So, with a passionate plea from the 3 hospital CEOs as well as Dr. Lanza, I believe wholeheartedly that's what tipped the movement of the board. That's what tipped the scales in the favor of closing the beach on March 20th. So in the 5 weeks since then, some of those opinions, maybe the opinion of the action at that time didn't change, but now,
right, Tammy.
Those opinions have softened some about going forward, about how to address things going forward. So I think it's a very worthwhile conversation to have now. But clearly, what we did on March 20th was due to the feedback and the direct request in writing and signed by those folks that are the medical professionals, as we're all lay people. I mean, that is, in my opinion, that is what made the board take that action. And if there's often short memories, but if you recall at the time, there was also a lot of pressure on the board to take more restrictive actions with other businesses in the county that the board did not do. I thought it was
lick your lips, lizard.
My vote. I thought it was very important at the time that we.
Come on, dude.
I did agree.
Quit wasting our time.
I didn't want to be
wasted enough of it.
Than the governor was being with the rest of the county.
It's ridiculous.
And, if you recall that time, there was a lot of pressure from other elected officials in our area, as well as
knock off the propaganda.
To be more restrictive on other types of businesses, and maybe even take a menu. We should do this with this, and this with this, and this with this. This board didn't take any of that action, and didn't really give a lot of length to that discussion. And as far as actions that have happened out of Tallahassee, or out of the governor's office, I would dare say amongst at least amongst the board, we lost my father a few years ago. My mother's still alive.
Oh my gosh, he's going to tell his life story.
Pays a tremendous amount of the bills in the other.
His dad died of coronavirus 5 years ago.
Households, so it's had a direct impact on.
Oh dear.
My household, but on my brothers and definitely my mother's. So there's been a lot of personal impact that those decisions have had, on me. And
I'm your pusher.
Each of us have had, each of us have had our impact, but. So even what's come out of the governor's office, even though we haven't been more restrictive, it's still had an impact. I feel certain, given some of the makeup of the working group and the task force that's coming out of Tallahassee, I think that it's very reasonable to think that the stay-at-home order is going to expire on Thursday. I think that's a very reasonable thing to think. There is going to be, and I believe that within, whether it's today, tomorrow, has to be by Thursday. So later today, tomorrow, or maybe even early Thursday, I think we're going to get some type of roadmap out of the governor's office for reopening the state. And I think it's very, very possible based on conversations I'm sure we've all had the ability to listen in, to not necessarily give feedback, but to be able to listen in on the task force meetings that have gone on for the last few weeks. And I've listened to a number of those. There is, I think, a very decent chance that we'll have different parts of the state treated differently. And based on the snapshot of the state, I would think that the Panhandle and our area and our greater area would be in the more favorable, view of the governor's office for relaxing some of the things that have happened. So I anticipate that to happen, which is not necessarily part of this discussion, but
that's right. So shut up.
Microphone to Commissioner May for some comments, and then we'll maybe
yield your time. Get on with it.
Comments about what Robert said, and then we'll try to pin down some more of the specifics as far as the time, what time of day, if we're going to have any restrictions on activities, what type of activities. I did hear the feedback about under the pier, and then talk about some of the public facilities, and make sure that we give as good a direction for Janice and Allison as we can before we leave. Commissioner May.
That dude's leaving. He's
Mr.
like,
Chairman.
forget this.
Thank you, Commissioner Bender, for your leadership on the beach. A couple questions. I guess with your porta potties, how will they be sanitized? The companies will be sanitized.
Sanitize these.
I mean,
damn. Hey, Faith. Good to see you.
How will they be sanitized?
So Wes has, let's see, Jamie, do you have the information? Yeah, Jamie has the information. Our staff is available to help if we need to help with that.
We're under contract with Containers Inc. We were going to provide 21 units out there to be cleaned every morning. We're also going to provide hand sanitizing stations as well.
So they're just going to be cleaned in the morning,
Just cleaned
once
in
a
the
day. They want to be cleaned once a day.
Once a day, yes, sir.
Now that's the contents being removed. Is that including any sanitation that Public Works would provide in terms of wiping or spraying down the surfaces?
Well, the actual portalets, we wouldn't be doing a whole lot unless y'all deem it necessary because they're contract units.
So what I talked to, what Ms. Boatwright and I have talked about is maybe providing other opportunities in between uses, but we're afraid if we do provide the chemicals may walk off, so we will have to have employees there monitoring that.
And so Commissioner Bender, I'll make a few comments. And so since Commissioner Berry and I have been on this board, I've never wavered from a commitment that I've said from this podium.
What
and you
in the
go and sit
world?
down. I mean, that'll be a further discussion. And I said that if I erred, I would err on the side of the recommendation of our healthcare.
Are y'all related or the same people? What's up with this?
My decision of
Faith 58,
that was taken, and so
83,
I see
and
Dr. Lanza. So at some
oh,
point,
okay, never mind. I thought you both had in your name. I was
to
like,
give
what
his
in the world?
recommendation, and I think I'm
Never mind. I'm
pretty aware of what that will be.
I was like,
I would caution you.
I was seeing
as
something
you
there
move
for a
forward
second.
in
Hey,
opening
Missy,
that
what are you
any
doing?
Guidelines or any activities
You getting comfortable on my
that are
leg?
permissible, that we get input from the sheriff
Not a little
as he
tiny
will be
kitty
the
cat
enforcement
anymore.
agency to make sure that happens. So before
You want
we
the
call
beach open,
vote,
Missy?
I
You ready for the
certainly
beach to
would
be
like
open?
to hear from
Yeah.
the chief deputy of the sheriff on
Yeah, Missy
how,
wants the beach open
any
too.
policies that we bring forth will be enforced. And so that's important. I do want to make aware that there is a contrast between Escambia County and Santa Rosa County, and that we had 15 new cases since Monday, and they've only had one new case. And so when
Bullshit!
people start comparing
Propaganda! Bullshit!
Pensacola, Santa Rosa to Okaloosa to Escambia, our numbers are a lot higher, and we have had more
Good to see you,
deaths
Faith.
and more cases than those counties, and so our situation is different. I mean, we do have a 7% positive testing rate according to the information
Bullshit!
That the state of Florida put out, and that is high. And a lot of people will say we're at 4.
It's fake.
We're at 4, but the data that
We just
I
have more
received
old
is
people
what's coming
dying
in
that
the
are
news
being
now,
labeled as
about
coronavirus.
7%, so we should be very cautious of that. We do have a facility that's not controlled by us, but it is in my district, and the people that work there. Certainly, I was elected to represent them just as the 4 of us were. And so not only the employees, you have the people who are bringing meals in, you have people who are transporting, you have our community transportation people who are taking people there. So people like to say, well, our cases are only
Yep,
bad
they
in nursing
become
homes.
dictators,
There are
dictating
thousands
where and when we can move
who work
and
inside those nursing homes
go.
who have to care for our sick and shut in. That
They
have
can't
to leave
dictate
those
these.
establishments and go back into the general population, to their families, and putting people at rest. So I do concur that testing is important. I don't want to escape the fact that those workers are just as critical. And so when someone says that they were old, when they say that someone was sickly and they were going to die, that's insensitive. And my passion that God's given me is not an insensitive passion. It's a passion I care for all people. And so that's like taking your grandmother off a ventilator. Who wants to be your grandmother? I mean, so we have to make sure that we consider all people, and all lives are important. And there's never a dollar amount that's more important than a life. And so, Mr. Bender, I'll take your lead. I certainly want to hear from Dr. Lanza. We do have a
Tired of hearing this Lanza, Dr. Lanza, Adam Lanza. Yeah, what is this?
We do understand
brother?
People that leave work, whether they're leaving Southern Oaks or whether they're leaving any other facility that may contain the virus, there's no way that we can contain them without going out in the general population. So the number one priority that I have as an elected official is the public safety of all citizens, not the public safety of a few, but the public safety of all citizens. And so as we move forward in this conversation,
Ooh,
I just hope
boy,
that
oh
we
boy,
keep
oh
this in
boy, oh
mind.
boy.
Mr. Bender, I'm going to yield and lean to your direction, but also have read the letter from our administrators. And quite frankly, I've heard from some of the first liners, the nurses, the doctors who are on the front line, and not all their opinions agree with the administration opinion. And so
Imagine that.
consideration, not only the CEOs who are tasked with making the bottom line work, but those nurses, those respiratory therapists, those CNAs, those RNs who daily get up and put their life at risk and tell me the things that they are faced with each and every day. And so those messages will not come forward. And I have the responsibility to articulate that for those because they work for people. And quite frankly, they can't get out publicly and say probably what they want to say. But it's not an overwhelming majority of opinion of many healthcare experts and medical providers that their safety is not in jeopardy at this time. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. But before you call any vote, I would certainly like to hear from Dr. Lanza.
Call the vote. Call the vote. Screw the doctor. Screw the doctor.
And Commissioner Prakash, did you have questions for Commissioner Bender?
I did actually, and I guess probably for all of you as well. Commissioner Bender, obviously, I like where you're at with the no limitations on activities. It creates you're right, that would create a conflict areas for our first responders, and I think you're smart to avoid that. I would ask that one of the things that I had talked about was asking Gulf Islands National Seashore in the state to open theirs as well. And so I would ask you guys to remember that the lion's share of beach access is on the west side are managed by the state and federal partners. Failure to ask those state and federal partners not to open will result in further denying our west side citizens access to the beaches, and it will further exacerbate crowding at Pensacola Beach if that's the only one that's open. So I would ask you guys to seriously consider, that just recognizing we don't have the authority to direct, but we can and have the ability to request. And those partners have always been great partners with us on Perdido Key, and have worked well in the past. I do want to speak to the closure of pavilions that the staff brought up. I do not believe that's a good decision because it will impact the elderly and the infirm more than others. A lot of people that you can't actually get down and spend time with their feet in the sand still go to the beach, but spend time on the hardscape areas. Denying them individuals to shade on a hot beach will in fact introduce an additional health and safety risk that I think we can avoid, especially when you consider the reports that are fairly common now that the virus can only live for minutes in the outdoor environment of those similar to that of those pavilions. The measures that we've already agreed upon of groups no greater than 10 and 6 feet apart meets the requirement that we would. Denying people access to the shade on the beach strikes me as something that might have unintended consequences that we should think through a little bit more. And then, Stephen, we've talked a couple of times about our duties here are clearly subordinate to higher authority. I don't think any of the five of us have ever had any illusions about that. But I believe we also have a duty to the governor to let him know what things look like from here on the Panhandle. You can be fairly certain that the larger urban areas are making their experiences well known in Tallahassee, and much of Tallahassee's decision making it reflects that information. I think that we owe it to the governor to be able to express to him, what the view looks like from the less urban areas and from the rural areas of Florida, so that those can be a part of his decision making. So I think that when I say that, I'd like to really kind of push the state to making decisions that would be appropriate for us here in the Panhandle. I mean that with out of a sense of duty that the governor relies on the 5 commissioners of the 67 counties, or in the case of Jacksonville, they've got like 77 commissioners, but they rely on the commissions to really tell them what the 67 counties look like. And I think that if we fail to do that, we might be denying him very important information for his decision making. Thank you.
Commissioner Bennett, you can respond, then Commissioner Bergosh.
Yeah, Doug, I don't think it hurts to ask the Gulf Islands National Seashore to consider to follow our lead in reopening our beaches. Hopefully,
Robert, I'm sorry. Can I ask what you read earlier from Dan Brown? You got that today? Is that?
I did. It looked like it was only went to the administrator, myself, Doug, and then someone in his office.
And then I just forwarded it to.
Oh, okay. But it just came today.
Yeah.
It did, and I think he had relayed some information earlier, maybe like late last week, also to just say that, hey, we aren't opening with Santa Rosa, that the 399 park is going to remain closed. But of course, Doug, I understand the impact that Johnson Beach has on your district and how that opens up, of course, the ability for people to spread that access out there is great. So I think we can ask that because it reduces the
Hey, Tobin, good to see you. Welcome. Always good to see you.
Be available to the public.
Hey.
Yeah, and I thought that the argument that you made about the time issue was very valid and really kind of closed out the discussion, in my opinion.
Vote already. Let's go. Vote.
We should maximize the time that they can go so that it's spread out. I think the same argument.
Get your vote on. Get your vote.
And when you
Get your vote on. Get your vote.
On Johnson Beach alone.
Johnson's Beach. They're talking about you, Ben.
Part of our culture on the west side. And we've already been denied. I mean, normally we've already.
They said keep your Johnson off of Johnson Beach, man. Your Johnson has coronavirus.
That's more the people's beach than any other beach in the city. So even though, so I would just ask that we include that. The request, obviously, Superintendent Brown is going to share that information with his leadership, and it gives his leadership the opportunity to see our perspective in their decision making. That's all.
Hopefully, the Park Service will continue not charging any fees for the immediate future to allow people to get out there and spread out.
Hopefully, Dan's listening right now.
Spread the vote. Let's go.
Again, in discussing with those that will be out there on the front lines doing the enforcing, I am going to respectfully ask to include their request regarding the pier. That is that was, I'd say, a notorious hotspot in terms of the gathering. And again, that's why, as I said, I don't want to say struggle, but
gather around these.
Thought about not allowing this, no umbrellas like they're doing in some places. And I agreed that then we'd probably say we cause skin cancer and things like that. So I don't think it's necessarily just saying you can't have shade on the beach. I think we're just trying to, again, at least for the first week, try to limit the likelihood of these large gatherings. Again, when we were making the request before we initially closed the beach, that was where we were having our problem areas, and that's where people are going to go out and say, look what they're doing in Escambia County. I think we as Escambia County are better than what is portrayed in a lot of other places. And so I have had the ability to talk to commissioners. I talked to the commissioners actually in Nassau. It's not in Duval, but I said, hey, what's the real story in Jacksonville? And he says, no, they're doing a good job. The people are going out there. They're maintaining their distance. And so that's the thing is people have said, get the facts, talk to people. And that's what I get the opportunity to do when I talk to these other commissioners is I call down and say, you're making the decisions I'm making here. What information are you seeing down there? Tell me what led to your decisions or what you're not doing. I would say, of course, in South Florida, I did have a call this morning. They are going to start to reopen some parks and boat ramps and other things like that. They still think it's a while before they do their beaches, but
I think we as Escambia County
and I think
are
that
better
is
than
what is
what is
imperative
in a lot of
that our community has access to is test results, the ability to do contact tracing so that any new cases, they limit the spread of that. And then, of course, enforcement
that's the thing is that our first responders, especially our sheriff's deputies, are already stressed with this. I know, Sheriff, I think you had at 41. Was that the number that you had out at one point? And of course, I appreciate the extra enforcement deputies that you've had out there during spring break leading up to this, and then during this closure. But you know,
Commissioner, can we set one other, if there's not opposition to this, that the decision that the board makes today is not going to be 14 days or 21 days or something like that, just that we leave it open-ended until another board action, given the fact we will be together the next 3 weeks. Is everybody okay with that?
I think that's a great idea. I can support that.
All right, so that's at least another thing, Janice, that we can say, that for sure that's going to be part of the outcome when we take a decision. Robert, you got the floor back.
Sure. Thank you. And of course, the discussions we've had is been around enforcement, and we don't have the manpower to do a lot of the, I'd say, restricting that people have asked us to do. I'd also like to say this is I don't want to say breaking news, but we are hearing that the governor of Alabama is going to be reopening their beaches.
Bam!
30th at 5
Floribama.
Subject to social distancing guidelines, including gatherings no longer. So about the same thing we're talking about right now. I think this helps us. Alabama opening, again, the thing that we have that maybe some of the areas to the east, and especially down in South Florida have, is we have all of Alabama that was closed and could easily make the drive. I wouldn't put it past people coming in from Montgomery to come in just for the day, just to drive 2.5 hours down here to spend the day at the beach. So the fact that our neighbors to the west are now following what we're doing, I think this falls right in line with what we were trying to do and open this as a region and not.
Maybe it's perfect. We have a meeting today then. Maybe today's perfect day.
I think that's, yeah.
Robert.
So, again, I think we're going to probably say no restrictions on time, which we've done. I would say we have to follow the guidelines, and we have the enforcement, and then the sheriff's department would be the last resort. We haven't.
So the enforcement, when you say the enforcement, you're talking about the lifeguard being the first level of enforcement. That's what you're saying?
Lifeguards, we're going to have public works, possibly, as Administrator said, maybe code enforcement, or we have our animal control officer that's out there. We do have the dog parks.
You're saying ask all of those to be exhausted before we ask law enforcement?
I don't want to say exhausted. I think it just gives us the availability to have more people out there assisting.
Okay. All right. Anybody?
Robert, can I interject one question? I want to make sure I understood. So you're saying it's okay to go out there, set a lawn chair up, a sunshade, put my pole in the sand and fish and sit down and wait? Because I mean, I just
it better be. Get on with the vote.
Talking about fishing, you're not going to be standing the whole time, catching fish one by one. There's some waiting involved, and I like to.
Yep.
So I want to make sure that because
why these wankers are wasting our time. Meanwhile, the other end of the island, Santa Rosa County, Navarre Beach, has already made the decision to open the beach Thursday or Friday, and now we learned Alabama is opening back up their beaches, and these pricks want to keep on with this crap, man. Just wasting more people's time.
As long as there's the spacing, are you saying that as well?
Space D's.
Steve, I'd say it wouldn't be my first choice. Again, because I think we're not trying to entice people to come down here, and I think that could open it up. But if
Floribama mullet toss.
I'm sorry, Steve.
I was just. I'm not necessarily saying you said that, but
no.
You just didn't say any restrictions.
I know, and it wouldn't be my first choice, but in talking with public, I mean, it just becomes an enforcement issue and the ability to enforce. And
you can't enforce these.
That mother that sits down, or lays their infant in the sand while the other kids play, that are following all the social distancing and everything like that.
It's about power and control. They get to sit up there all day and pretend that they're better than us.
Activities, as long as they're maintaining the groups and the 6 feet.
That's where I have to go to right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Robert, if you would bullet point, because Stephen, I see where we're going with this, and obviously, Robert.
Yeah, get on with the vote.
I'm certainly reluctant to
get your rules together and get on with it.
Danger or passing the virus, but can we bullet point
Miley Cyrus is the virus. Just don't touch her,
sit here all day
and you'll be fine.
If we like, but I mean, if we could just put the bullet points down and where you want to go, we could come to something concrete. Because I would have questions on social distancing, contact tracing. If that's a part of your motion, I don't know if it is. If it's not, that's fine.
Well, I think it has to. You have to have the groups of people shall be limited to 10 or fewer. Individuals will retain a 6-foot distance from other groups, and individuals not.
And those couple things, I think we've pulled off the dais onto the outcome already.
Right.
When you say time, do you mean 24 hours a day, or are you saying like the sun up, sundown? What's your thought?
I mean, do we have much of an issue during nighttime anyway? I mean, if we would, I would say we maybe do 30 minutes before and after sunrise, sunset.
Robert, I'll follow you, but if you want my opinion, and we've had multiple people come up, even with the expert, and say the sun helps eliminate it, and we need sunshine. No one said we needed the moon yet, and certainly young people being out. I mean, you could make it a party haven, but
30 minutes before and 30 minutes after, that might be a decent first step. If that's what you're saying, and I'm just trying to kind of extract for the discussion.
I'm ready to whatever you want to do.
I would ask how enforcement's gone during the night anyway. I mean, I know
they're getting hungry now. They want lunch. It's lunchtime here, so they're gonna wrap it up.
Again, what the penalty would be if someone is out there after those hours.
If you're out there after hours, you're going to a FEMA camp.
But yeah, I'd be fine with the 30 minutes before and after.
Did you, since the sheriff has to enforce that, Mr. Chairman, did we want to hear from the sheriff at all before our decision or not?
The podium's certainly open for Sheriff Morgan if you'd like to make any comments.
Here comes the man.
As well as Dr. Lanza for sure.
Mr. Chairman,
anybody else the board wants to hear from?
A question from you, Mr. Chairman. Sure. Would we be opening the trolleys as well?
Sheriff Dees.
Like we're doing on our buses?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that necessarily. I mean,
and that's my issue. I mean, we didn't get in this overnight. I mean, if we're going to walk out of this with something, pandemic, we got to walk out.
Plandemic, scamdemic.
Robert, I'll follow that.
Not a
plan,
pandemic.
Right? We have to give clear instructions, in some way, assurance to the general population of the community that we have a plan that people are going to be safe.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Listening to you all debate this thing, I'm reminded of President Kennedy. He did an address to Loyola College.
JFK, 4 people in the car, not 6.
His commencement ceremony because the country was having some difficulties. He said, "Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer."
The right answer is y'all go home and stop this crap.
But again, let us look forward to the right decisions of the future. You made the right decision on March the 20th.
Nope.
I stand with you in that decision. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right decision. As you've all stated, your medical community told you that. You had an excellent example of a community that failed to follow those directions from the medical community, and that was New York City. Actually had a governor and a mayor that went out and encouraged people to go to the theaters and to ride the subways. And this is, a total amount of nonsense that's being spread to everyone, and they almost went under for it. And I think the swift and effective action that you took on that day has gotten us to where we are today. Now, having said that, let's please continue to make the right decisions. And one of the things that I would encourage the board to do is to not make decisions that are dumb decisions. And by that, I mean things that are not enforceable. So let's talk about the CDC requirements for social distancing, in an outside area and on the beach. Now, I just drove to the beach with my wife and my kids in an enclosed car. And now I get out on the beach with my beach chairs, and someone's going to come out and tell me to get distance from my wife and my children.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, we're going to look pretty dumb if we do that.
Yep.
So in crafting whatever it is we want to do on the beach,
tell them, Sheriff.
I think you need to open the beach completely. Again, I've told many of you, you can't be half pregnant. You create bottlenecks when you put specific hours there, which are going to encourage more traffic at different times, which then bleeds over into how do I enforce anything that you put out there.
Wow.
I would suggest to all of you that we're at a juncture now in this that unless you were literally living on another planet, we all know about hygiene.
It's not a planet.
Hand washing, sanitation with the hand sanitizers. We know about social distancing. We know about wearing a mask if that's something that makes us feel comfortable. There's a time where in governance that we step back and say, I've given you all the tools to complete this, and now it's incumbent upon you to follow those directions. And I think that's where we are. I think we should also, in our discussions with the governor, I haven't spoken with the governor, over a week.
The plane of existence, not a
I think
planet.
we need to do the same things with the businesses.
Flat plane of
Again,
existence.
remember, if you keep those closed and we have someone now that opens their business, does anyone on this county commission want the sheriff of Escambia County to make arrests on the beach because I have a family that won't separate? Do you really want me to
Woo!
go to
Tell
allow
them,
someone
Sheriff.
to step inside and make their order as opposed to standing outside to make their order? And the answer is no. We can't do that. That's not who we are. So again, I would encourage you today, as always, we're going to, with a smile on our face, and I say this sincerely, do our best to enforce whatever you vote on today, because we are in the support role in this. I would request that the county administrator and the county attorney please coordinate with our legal office and us what your final draft is before you vote on it. Allow us to, put a hand up or hands down. And
No, they need to vote right now. Come on, Sheriff. Let's get it done. But I agree.
Choose to continue to put it in there, then again,
No social distancing on the beach.
you can do those on your television net to again.
Look at the dude back there in the background. That was the one that was pissed off.
People don't drive.
He spoke the best. Resistance. This dude right here with the flag residue, the old flag residue with the stripe under the red stripe under the stars.
Cutting off the beach access. That outside influence that we know was spreading the virus was stopped by the actions that you took. The beach is the draw. It is the magnet. So now what you have to decide is, do we open that venue? I would encourage you. I think the time is right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Wow.
Thank you.
That was good stuff. He's not a yes man, Sheriff.
Just to be clear, my suggestion was that it was 30 minutes before sunrise it opens and 30 minutes after sunset it closes. Because of course some people say that the times before and after are just as beautiful as the time between. So, but no other restrictions. Other than the pier, right? And the social distancing. Yeah. No, I know. Not for you. I think
They're just making a joke out of this.
Question, and are we gonna start inspecting cups and no, and of course I would say go to the businesses and grab one and walk along the beach or something like that. Of course, some of those restrictions that they had in terms of to-go cups and things have been lifted. And so maybe try to go out and support those businesses that really rely on this time to.
Can we do a recommendation for type of beer?
Yeah, they do.
Circle K.
Machine
Would you like to
Monkey.
give any recommendations?
This
buzz for you.
That's right.
So,
Keep laughing. Keep it up.
Jeff, you'd get into it.
Keep making a joke out of it. You're the joke.
Thought about not doing
You
tours, but are you not going to allow a family?
6 people up there are a joke.
Yeah.
You don't represent D's. That's for sure.
What about the facilities? We need to land on what the feedback's going to be about those.
I'm where you were, Mr. Chairman. I can support what you were saying.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what that.
Well, I would request that the pavilions stay closed until our meeting on May 7th, just because of resources that would be needed to repeatedly clean those. Again, we're trying to let people go out and enjoy the beach and not encourage that.
Commissioner Bender, are there any other restrictions like when it's raining? Are there any matrix that we're going to look at? If something happens before May 7th, I mean, in which you would have the administrator to have the authority to make any. I mean, obviously she can make any decision now because of.
She can. Again, I would hope that people follow this. I think I would say that if we don't see that things are being followed, I think that might impact our decision on May 7th, because we are still trying to, we are still in a pandemic.
No, we're not.
Closed.
and, and we
Give
are
me a
being
break.
asked to do our part to stop the spread.
Spread of lies,
so we hope people
deceit,
take that into
propaganda.
consideration when they do go to the
That's the virus.
as far as rain days, I'll say I've talked to businesses around here. I think that, of course, Simon Malls was one of the first national big stores to say, hey, we're shutting everything down. I think they have a plan that they're working on to reopen. But again, we don't know what necessarily their vendors will do. All the stores probably won't open when they reopen, but and of course there will be some. They've said that there'll probably be some differences that you see in terms of seating and things like that. So, we're all making adjustments during this time period to try to get restarted and reopened. So.
I'm sorry. What about the restroom? About the restroom issue? Are we more comfortable with the vendors trying to provide that than the county facility, than us trying to maintain the facilities?
I think so.
At least for a few days.
Yep, I hear you,
At least
brother.
till 7 until we come back, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think that was your opinion too, right, Mr. Chairman?
That's
your opinion.
I would hope.
Stalling.
I see the
Quit stalling,
services
stalling.
I would think that if the board gave direction, we could give some type of direction for some type of increased sanitization of it. I mean, he said that's not in their standard contract, or that's not the standard agreement, but I would think that there would be some availability for that. If you wouldn't mind, please coming back up, sir, and maybe talk a little bit about what what you can do if asked by the board.
Mr. Chairman, we can go ahead and get with the contractor. We have a yearly contract with him. We can certainly get him to clean as often as we need.
What's your thoughts on that, Robert? Do you have some feedback based on any discussions on the timeliness?
I would prefer if there was something that we could do similar to what we were doing with our own facilities, even if it's a disinfectant spray or something that we could to spray on some of those common areas in that. Again, my thought was that
Spray
it would be easier
yourselves.
to I don't want to say stand in line, but clean one portlet while the other ones are still being used, as opposed
Spray
to
your
trying to
lying
clear
mouths
an
out.
entire facility.
Would we be trying to ask them to have somebody have the contractor,
Well,
or would somebody
again,
post it on site, like
I
sitting
would
there?
prefer not to incur that additional cost if we have resources available.
We can work through this. We'll be happy. I
Okay.
just appreciate your consideration for this first week.
Okay,
Sure.
so we
Because
would
that
be,
gives us another week of to see the decline and to then also make sure that we are not creating situations in which there may be any spread or anything like
all right,
that.
so
Which
Janice,
I think our bathrooms can.
to be clear, then the county would be providing someone physically there on site to be cleaning in between use. Is that what we're?
Oh my
I would
goodness.
like to work with the contractor and let us work that out.
Okay.
This is
We probably
ridiculous.
could get a split schedule where you clean half and then 6 hours later clean the other half. I'm sure we could work out something.
Okay, there's.
Oh, this is a
you know,
joke.
we can
Seriously,
wait for the
really.
opinion of the board, but
Gonna
I
have
think,
somebody wipe the toilet down every
more
time
frequent-
somebody
more
uses it.
frequent that
Give
can
me
be
a
worked out, the
break.
better. Because, that's the whole issue with the public facilities being open. How frequently are we gonna be able to get in there and clean them? So if we're gonna use a vendor, then let's work it out with the vendor for.
Don't
higher
fart
rate
in a
of
public
frequency such
bathroom.
as
You
the
might
county
spread
facilities.
coronavirus.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think this paint's going to eventually dry on the wall, but I do want to hear from Dr. Lanza and Commissioner Bender.
Dr.
I know you're
Dr.
going,
Adam
the
Lanza.
decision was solely based on a public health official that's responsible to the governor. So,
Dr. Lanza, if you don't mind.
would you mind coming?
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want it stated for the record. I mean, although I am reluctant in the way that we're going, I'm going to support it. But I certainly want to have, if there's a bigger problem, I want it to be on record that the chief healthcare official made a recommendation. So I'd just like to hear your recommendation, Dr. Lanza.
Please.
On opening of the beach. I'll make it as plain as I can.
Well, when you look at the positivity curve, it's somewhere between 4% and 7%, depending on the testing that was done and when the results come back. So it's a lot lower than the states, a lot lower than the federal.
But have we bent the curve? Has the curve been bending in Escambia County?
I'm sorry?
Is the curve bending?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely, and especially when you look at the ED admission rates for cough, definitely a negative slope, a good slope. When you look at the ED visitation rate for fever, cough, it's definitely on a downward slope. You see a little bit of bouncing around for shortness of breath. You really need to look at what the curve looked like a year ago for that, in the Essence data.
Yeah, I hear you,
But,
brother.
For me personally, I have allergies, and asthmatics have problems with allergies, so that might be a portion of that. I think that's more.
So what would be our
likely.
challenges if we open up, Dr. Lanza? What would be the challenges? I know there's some positives, but what would be a challenge? What would cause you a little bit of an alarm for opening up the beach?
Well, what would have caused me alarm is if Baldwin County, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa had not opened, and Panama City.
So you have no reservations and no concerns, correct?
I would say that the social distancing is an important factor. The non-congregation greater than 10, except in a family, as the sheriff said. I mean, if you're in a Morris Mini, you're driving over, and there's 6 people in there, you're not 6 foot away in that
Yeah.
family.
Yeah,
Dr. Lanza,
duh.
And board, this is something that was discussed before we convened today. There was questions about, we have signs for where people would sit in the audience, and it was asked if there was a couple and they sit beside each other. I mean, and everybody, we just rotate.
Keep
through
laughing.
stuff.
See, it's just a joke. They know it is. I'm so
And
sick of
these
these
are,
people and this propaganda
just
bullshit.
those types of discussions, and that, of course, we're not gonna, we're not
You're
gonna throw
wasting
somebody out of
our
here because
time.
they're
You're
not
wasting
social distancing from their spouse. That
resources.
doesn't make any sense. So I'm sorry to
You're
interrupt you. Go ahead, Dr.
you're trying to
as we said early on,
put the stake in small businesses here, and it's disgusting. It's evil, and it's unconstitutional.
As the sheriff said, the desire for people to come to Escambia County, and then we also had,
Wake up, you 6 turds.
And so we had to take the steps to protect our community and our citizens.
Quit sitting up there like your shit don't stink.
So would hypothetically then we would be saying this
like you're so much better than everybody, you freaks.
That's what we would be.
Open the beach, bitches.
Have to be separated from other groups by 6 feet.
Okay, just to clarify, just so that we clarify what,
Is that an
what we're
accurate
putting
statement?
in.
Yes, Dr.
Sorry for the rant,
so we can
folks, but
clarify
this is
what
just getting
we're trying to
absurd.
put
It's getting
together for us
ridiculous.
to have in place. Okay.
And then the other thing I'd like to talk a little bit about the data just real quick is that we really have no idea of the 470 confirmed cases in Escambia County, how many are still confirmed today? Is that
Still
correct?
confirmed. Well,
Oh,
they're
others-
confirmed, so they had
They've been
have or
confirmed.
had the disease. Yes.
Right.
They have the disease forever.
Because we don't know. We're not doing immunity testing because of the difficulties in interpreting what the testing means. And that's still awaiting federal studies to take a look at that.
And that wouldn't matter anyway on transmission because you can be asymptomatic and transmit the virus. I mean, so
Exactly.
Yeah, that wouldn't
But
solve any problem.
I guess my point was that we've had 470 tests, or I think we're 482 now, that have tested positive, but we don't know how many of those are still showing the symptoms or would have tested negative for 2 samples over a 24-hour period like they were doing in other places. So
for healthcare workers.
Okay.
And you have to keep in mind too, Commissioner Bender, with that broad of a statement, we probably tested less than 2% of the population, correct, Dr. Lanza? What percentage of the population? We tested right at what, 5,000 people, 6,000 in Escambia
If
County?
you look at the Florida Department of Health, it's around 7,000. So
Is that data accurate
7,000
from the state of Florida?
7,000 divided by 310,000.
Yeah.
On the DOH,
Probably more than that, though.
It says that we've conducted 6,805 total tests.
Yeah.
I know.
And I'm asking the question to the healthcare provider, is that information accurate?
Yes, that information is accurate.
And so that's all I
as
go
of
on, then,
the
Jim.
time it was put up there, but there's still
Oh.
tests that are out there that have not come back yet. There's probably 1,000 or 2 more out there that have not been entered into Merlin yet.
Right.
That's always been the issue
Yep.
that y'all have had. That it's
Too
just-
much fluoride
I have 56
in your
staff
hide.
members working this. That's all they do is contact trace and put information in the Merlin. They're on the phones. They're doing giving advice on the phones and other.
That dude is so upset back there, man. He is.
We're still.
Woo!
But do you feel comfortable at least with?
I'm
with
upset too, brother.
The the length of time that it's taking us to get our test results, I mean, as I said, I think we're pretty far ahead of where other places throughout the state are. And that
This
we
is
are getting most of
nonsense.
Our test results back within 36 to 48 hours.
Means it makes no sense.
Yes, especially if they're done by the local
This is
hospitals.
bull crap.
It's when we have to send them out to a private lab, it takes a day or
Wrap
two longer.
it up.
Okay.
Wrap
But
up
still,
your
we're
bull
not seeing
crap.
that week-long
Wrap the
lag
crap
of just
up.
getting a test result back that we saw
Not anymore,
a month ago.
no.
Right. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, as long as, yeah, Dr. Lanza.
Dr. Lanza, I just wanted to ask your opinion about this. You know, we've seen that aircraft carrier, the Roosevelt, and they tested every sailor on board the ship, and there was like 900 that were positive, but a huge percentage, like 60%, didn't even know they had it. They were asymptomatic. And there was an entire city in California, Santa Rosa, I believe.
Santa Rosa.
I believe down in the villages, they're going to test everyone. But the question I have is, because you said something earlier that I've been trying to get the answer for. I've asked everyone that I've spoken with, everyone that works in the health field. So the difference between an asymptomatic carrier who doesn't know he has it and someone who had it, was in the hospital, recovered, whatever that means, and has it, what is the difference between those two
Oh,
people?
dear.
Can either one of them or both of them still transmit the disease to other people? That's kind of the unknown question that's been bugging me, and maybe there's a simple answer.
Are you asking me an asymptomatic, actively carrying person versus someone who's recovered?
Yeah.
The difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well-
the asymptomatic person who's actively can transmit the disease by talking or coughing or sneezing is someone who can transmit it to someone else.
But how long does that
Sneeze on D's.
But it is somewhere less than 21 days, probably around 14 days. Research is still going on to try to figure out exactly what that is.
And antibody testing, I know that Michigan, Florida, New York got it, and Florida has it, but it's my understanding the closest place to get an antibody test is Panama City. Do you know, is that true, or do we have that capability here? Because I think that's an important part of the whole long-term solution.
Right.
We're going to open the beaches
To
today.
determine what our herd immunity is, which means we have a lot of people that have antibodies to the disease and therefore can't get it, and generally prevents the spread of the disease in the community. We don't know what that percentage needs to be. For some disease like measles, it needs to be like 70% of the population need to be immune. We don't know what it is for COVID-19.
But do we have antibody testing in Escambia County?
If a particular doctor or medical group ordered that from South Korea or China, they could have that. I'm not aware of that. That's something that's going to come down from the state, and we haven't been told yet when that's going to be.
I'm told from someone who works in the medical community that they have that right now in Panama City. Are you
Right,
aware?
because they ordered that.
Okay, they ordered
As a physician with a license, you can order rabies vaccine if you want.
Is there some reason
whatever
why
you want?
Is there some, because I think that's a very important data point that we're all looking to get. Is there some reason why we haven't been proactive to get that here in Escambia County, that capability?
Well, you would have to ask the other medical providers why they haven't ordered it. It has not come down as yet as something that the governor has made available to us as yet.
Well, I think Sacred Heart will be doing antibiotic testing in the next week. I mean, I hope so. Testing are gone, but I do
Sure.
believe
Right.
If
I
you're
bet it
got a
was a
license,
blast.
You can order the tests, and if they're approved by the
I think they mean in a larger scale.
And Dr. Lynn, Mr. Chairman, you know, at some point, I'm going to
Use some 3-inch
Dr. Lynn,
screws.
I took your recommendation on voting to close the beaches, and it's your recommendation to open the beaches, and you have no reservations.
I do not believe that the governor would object to us open the beaches.
That's a good answer.
Good enough. Dr. Lance, one quick question. You, just for my curiosity, you said you're not aware of anybody locally that has tested, that shows antibody yet? You're not personally aware of any?
I'm
of
not
that?
personally aware of that. I mean, based on the fact that there are viruses out there and people develop immunity to viruses, I'm sure there are people who have had COVID-19 that have immunity. The level of immunity, I don't know. How long it will last, I don't know. That's where a controlled experiments need to be done. Controlled studies need to be done to determine what that really means.
I think we're narrowing to action on this. Does anybody else have any questions for Dr. Lanza?
I'll just point out, I just got a text message from someone who gave me the original information, and they say as of yesterday, Quest Pensacola has the antibody testing. So they're watching the meeting. So for what that's worth.
Commissioner Underhill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Lanza, you mentioned when you first came up to the podium today that we are in fact on a downward trend. Can you tell me when that downward trend began in your, based on your information?
In looking at the curves about 2 weeks ago, it was flattening and then starting to turn to a negative curve. You kind of have to draw between the spikes on the two ED graphs, but if you look at going back 2 weeks,
Roof
you start
analysis,
seeing
yeah.
a negative curve about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so I'm actually looking at those graphs, and that's why I asked the question. It looks like 318 to 326 would have been a peak on the cough-associated admissions. You've got two outlier spikes, two high outlier spikes, and one low outlier spike. That obviously, if you're doing statistics properly, you flatten those out to get your trend line. It appears that the downward trend line began somewhere around 318 to 325. Do you have I mean, in order for us to be able to really track a date for and follow the president's guidance of the 14-day things, we kind of need to know and be all on the same sheet of music of what we think day one of 14 days was. So is that something that you'd be able to send me an email and tell me what you're tracking as based on the current trend line, what you're calling the first day of the downward trend?
I would take that request and send it up to Tallahassee because they're the ones who do the statistics.
Okay, that's the answer.
But you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I
that it
mean,
probably-
and I'd love to see that statistical data as well, because we picked up 15 new cases on yesterday. I mean, we're up, we picked up 87 just in that nursing home. So if you're going to abstract the nursing home, okay, maybe you can argue that data. But with what we're picking up in the nursing home, I mean, quite frankly, I mean, it's not descending. It's actually accelerating at some degree.
Right, and that's why we have gone into the nursing home. Sacred Heart specifically has done that. The National Guard is doing that, starting on Monday doing that, just to see, what the incidence the incidence of the disease is in the nursing homes.
A nursing home is not mutually exclusive. Nursing home is not mutually exclusive, and it's certainly not an island entire to itself. I mean, it's a part of the community, and it's a part of the numbers. And people would love to say they're not, but they are.
Well, no, it is important because it's not the individuals in the nursing home as much as it is the healthcare workers that come in and out of the nursing home.
Well,
Yes.
Go to the beach.
Let's be very clear, though, that when we're talking about the nursing homes, we are going to have to normalize the data to the number of samples taken. Obviously, it's going to look like a spike when you do a hardcore press of number.
Hey,
of
Tom,
which
Tom.
you know to be a higher risk.
Hey,
area. Certainly was
DD34.
the right decision to do that, but you cannot take that spike. And
These
then
guys are
without
just
normalizing
stalling.
the data to the
Quit
total
stalling,
sample
stalling.
size, then
That's what I
be
say.
treating that as something that is the overall trend of Escambia County. So I hope that we're making that type of analysis, because if we don't, then quite frankly, you can use any outlier event. Let's say we go ahead and let's do 10,000 tests in Escambia County today. That's going to show an increase, although it would be the same percentage wise. And then that would be justification for, taking a step back in that process.
That's why you look at trends.
Yeah, so I want to be very, very careful that and part of trend analysis is removing the anomalies or properly adjusting for the anomalies. And again, as I'm looking at the data that is being provided on that dashboard, it does appear that there is a downward trend, following the simple practices of statistics of dropping your anomalies and normalizing for them, that started somewhere around 318 to 325. And so I'd like to know, because we're telling people, hey, you got to have 14 days and we're on a downward trend. Okay, so in order to manage people's expectations in the public forum, we need to be able to say, we're on day 9 of a downward trend. So, 5 more days of that downward trend, then we'll hit that gate that the president has been talking about for additional actions on the part of this board. Those gates are very important for the decision-making of this board. So if at all possible, I would like to get a statement of exactly where we see this current downward trend that you stated that we're on. What is day 1 of that?
Are you saying 318 or 418?
I'm looking at the graph here and it says 318 to 325 was our peak, and it looks like a pretty solid downward trend there.
After that,
correct.
So that's your statement. I just want to be clear on a downward trend starting 418. When did you say we started on a downward trend?
They're right here.
Oh, listen, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Lindsay, thank you for putting lives first. If you make a motion, I move
Dr.
forward
Lindsay.
because we could stay
Thank
here
you.
for another 3 days on that.
Dr. Lanza, thank you for
Thank you,
willingness
Doctor.
to be at the podium and answer questions. Any other questions directly for Dr. Lanza?
No, Dr. Lindsay, thank you so much. I mean, we've worked with you and you've done a yeoman's job of trying to fight through this.
And Commissioner Underhill does have a request of you, Dr. Lanza, and you understand what that question was.
I think I do.
Okay.
But I may
I'll
have
send
to
you an
call-
email.
Yeah, send me an
He'll
email.
send you an email.
All right.
And I did want to mention, Dr. Lanza, how many more days until you retire?
92.
What a way to
the exact
retire.
date, to the date, you know, to the date, I'm
Oh,
sure.
yes.
Right. All right.
Thank
Super.
you.
Thank
That's the
Dr.
first
Lanza.
time I've seen you smile.
Yeah.
I hope Sandra Smile is not listening.
He retires in 92
So,
days.
Board,
Imagine
that's-
that.
I think that wraps up folks in the audience, public comment, those kind of things. Is Allison, Janice, any
Yeah,
other
exactly,
specifics
Dee Dee,
related to our beach
74.
that we're not, that we haven't addressed in the discussion? May 1 is going to be our number.
30
Okay.
minutes before sunrise on May 1st.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So one, I appreciate the board's discussion this morning. I hope everyone who's watching understands that of course is we took this with a
Patriots back.
thoughtful discussion that we did when we closed the beaches, and that we are relying on our medical community, the letter that we received from the hospitals, and the data to make this decision. And of course, we are seeing it happening around us. So with that being said, I would like to make the following motion.
Here we go.
We allow emergency order EO 20-4 to expire 30 minutes before sunrise on May 1st, that the beaches then reopen.
Still got to wait till May
30
1st.
minutes before sunrise to 30 minutes after sunset, that the area around the pier is closed as the lifeguards deem necessary to protect that. The pavilions are closed, and then we'll work with the administrator to set up the facilities, public facilities, and then also that we draft and sign a letter to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's Division of Recreation and Parks, as well as Superintendent Dan Brown of the Gulf Islands National Seashore, requesting that they open their facilities in Escambia County.
All right.
Doug, is that good?
That's good.
Can we also reference the continued CDC guidelines? of
Oh, yes,
the
thank
6
you, sorry. Yes, and that the beaches are reopened following the CDC guidelines of groups.
CDC, Center for
And individuals will maintain a
Disease Control, not centers.
Individuals not in their immediate group.
And it's not necessary to say, but because it doesn't have an end date in it, then it's just going to be in place until the board takes another action.
Yes.
All right, and
Second.
we don't, and since if we're not restricting activities, we don't have to reference no restriction of activities, so that's good, everybody's good. All right, Jeff seconded it, and board, before we vote and folks try to go, this is gonna include, you said the letter to the
Yes, that I did,
Superintendent
that
Brown.
would
Okay.
include that letter to the Gulf Islands
All right,
National.
and we have just a couple of other items to take up before, a couple of other discussions before we actually break. We've got, I do think it's a reasonable discussion to discuss the parks in the county based on the fact that the beaches are our largest public park. And I think that the outcome, and I know I have some youth recreational partners and organizations that are hoping for at least a brief discussion about how we're going to treat the parks. Is it going to be similar to the beach after we take this action? But if might be able to keep a quorum for the discussion about the Parks and Rec, and Commissioner May has an add-on, and then there's an additional letter if we're going to consider sending anything to Tallahassee. But if there's no more discussion about this, I'd call for a vote about the beach. Item passes 5-0.
And Steve, I'm able to stay as long as you need.
Okay.
I've been a welcome relief from teaching this morning.
Yeah, have your kids fired their homeschool teacher yet? Have they given you evaluation? Have they given you an evaluation yet?
They have not. They have not. I'd say I don't envy the school board in having to set teacher salaries after this. So, but no, it's. Go ahead with the park discussion.
It is, and this is related to one of the add-ons that Commissioner Underhill brought, but Commissioner, comment about this.
Man, they like to hear themselves talk too much. This is crazy. Get on with it.
I do think a conversation about the parks and how we're going to handle youth recreational sports is reasonable, given the fact we just took action on the largest public park that we have. And I'll give you the floor to give some comments, your thoughts about the parks, and then we'll move on down the line and try to determine.
When you
an
do that,
action.
would you mind if I brought mine on in case Commissioner Bagash and myself have to leave? Can I go ahead and do mine?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm going to go ahead and move Commissioner May's funding allocation of $500 from his discretionary fund for the Epps Christian Center and their food drive.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Underhill.
Item passes 5-0.
Commissioner, if I may, just on that, Pastor Tisdale did call me. They are in the middle of a drive to raise money for that walk-in freezer. So if there are anyone out there.
That is it, folks, though. They did pass it 5-0.
I think she's been feeding through this.
The beaches will be open
So I just wanted to help her out.
30 minutes before sunrise, May 1st, and open each day until 30 minutes after sunset.
Commissioner Underhill.
No restrictions. You can sit down if you want, sunbathe, surf, whatever. But the pavilions where you have picnic tables, pavilions will be closed, and other things like that. But at least, yes, you can go to the beach now legally with your family.
I'll have her call Mr. Gilmore. Thanks.
Commissioner Underhill, if you want to give some comments, your thoughts about the parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My thoughts are that I believe that based on, especially on the discussion that we just had, and for all the same reasons, I believe that we're at a point where we can safely open our outdoor park facilities and allow the leagues that we currently have relationships with to begin their spring season as they see fit. I want to be very careful that we do not, that they don't, because many of these leagues are part of a much larger national or even international league. They may not be able to begin their season because their sanctioning body has other rules. If that is the case, I want to make sure that those entities do not lose their relationship with Escambia County because they failed to start season. But at the same time, I want to be telling those parks, those organizations, Perdido Bay Football Club or any of those and other spread out all over the county, that they are allowed to begin their season at our facilities, and that we expect the boards, the governing boards of those leagues to properly police the social distancing that we've already discussed, the 10 or fewer and the 6 feet or less.
And I believe Mike Rhodes has some pretty good outlines for things that I think are going to be implementable by those partners. And with an anticipation date to start practice on May 1st and games on the 15th.
Yes, that's correct. I did the best I could of kind of capturing some of the discussions with.
Is that all sports, Mr. Chairman?
So it's, well, my perception, it would be sports that partners that are active or were active at the time they were shut down. Which
you too, Tammy.
Baseball, softball,
I'm not too interested in the sports thing neither myself. I don't follow sports anymore. I really appreciate you guys being here. I do have to pretty much hurry up out of here. I've got to pay some bills and get a tire changed on a car. And definitely a win for us we got the beach back. We'll see how it plays out. The sheriff, I like what the sheriff said, that they're not going to come out there and make you and your family be 6 feet apart when you just drove there in a car that was, you weren't 6 feet apart. It's retarded to then make you separated on the beach, So, I think it's going to be great, and I look forward to getting out there real soon. I normally can't go to the beach in the springtime because I'm allergic to the spring sun, or I have been for the last 6 years. But this year, I have had very little problem with the sun and the sun poisoning. So I'm blessed, and I'm ready to get out there and do some boogie boarding and whatnot. All right, folks. Well, I hope you all have a blessed day. Continue to have a terrific Tuesday. Repent, prepare, watch, and share the truth until the end. 2021 through 2028 is the last 7 years, folks. Israel turns 80 in 2028. The Bible alludes to that they would only be a nation for 70 to 80 years when they became a nation again, and that was in 1948. Easy math there for you. 48 to 28 is 80 years. So, thanks a lot, everyone. Please, don't believe the hype, and just keep seeking and spreading the truth. Tommy here, Tommy out. God bless you all. Until next time, maybe tonight. Goodbye.